Yeah, sorry, I was just, so I've started the stream, but don't worry, we're not live, if that makes sense. So, oh no, hang on. Something has started. No, share, share, sorry. There is sound coming through on the stream, so I don't know why that is. It shouldn't be doing that, but you just need to be aware. Although the picture isn't streaming at the moment, there is sound from this meeting that is streaming, so you just need to be aware of that. I don't know how to stop that, I'm afraid. So we are streaming live now. There's no picture because I haven't set that up yet, but a palm chair in it. There's nothing in there that's confidential. Yeah, I can do that, Chair. Chair, you should now be live with picture as well as sound. I'm just waiting for it to pop up on my test stream. Yeah. So we should be good to go now, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, welcome everyone. My name's Mike Todd-Jones, Councillor Mike Todd-Jones. I'm chair of the committee, North Area. Just welcome to the North Area Committee taking place this Thursday, 8th of June 2023, 6:30 p.m. And I'll just go through the councillors I'm expecting to be present, and if you could just say that you are here, that would be really helpful. So City Councillors Bird.
I'm here.
Yeah, and County Councillor too, I should mention. City Councillor Carling.
Hello, present, Chair.
Right. City Councillor Gorthop Wood.
Hello.
City Councillor Gilderdale. I think is expected, but perhaps going to join us late. Oh no, hello. Can you just say you're present just for the record, Councillor Gilderdale?
Hello, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. City Councillor Shield.
Hello, yes, I'm here. Thank you, Mike.
City Councillor Smart. Right, Martin, Councillor Smart might be joining us a little late. Myself, I'm here, definitely. And City Councillor Wade.
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Yeah, and County Councillor Ray, I think is expected. So Councillor Ray may be joining us a bit late. I do have apologies from a few councillors. So I've got apologies from Councillor Divkovic, from Councillor Swift, from County Councillors Mike Black and Elisa Moschini, and I think there might be one other. Oh yes, City Councillor Baiju Tatalavaki as well. As I say, there might be one or two. I think Councillor Smart might join us a little bit late. Just can I just check that I've asked everyone who's present, that I've not missed anyone out? I don't think so. Although I don't think there are any other apologies that I'm not aware of. Okay, so can I also mention that an officer who's permanently at this meeting is our committee manager, Sarah Steed. And do let me know if you can't hear at all, or there are any technical problems. Just put something in the chat and let me know. Also, just before we go on, I would like to mention councillors who were part of North Area Committee but have stood down or are no longer councillors. So I'd particularly like to thank Alex Collis from King's Hedges, Carla McQueen, East Chesterton, Jocelyn Scutt, who was also formerly chair of North Area Committee from West Chesterton, and County Councillor Hilary Cox-Condren of Arbury. And also particularly welcome Councillor Alice Gilderdale for East Chesterton, Councillor Rachel Wade for West Chesterton, and in his absence, Councillor Mike Black for Arbury. So I hope that's acceptable. So quick items, housekeeping. North Area Committee is being run virtually. It does mean that we can't make decisions, but we can discuss local issues, and our kind of points and comments can go forward to the appropriate bodies. Copy of the agenda on the City Council website or under committee meetings, minutes and agendas, and the meeting being broadcast live via the council website. So public speakers, just to remind you that by speaking and appearing in this meeting, you're giving consent to being recorded. So the meeting is automatically recorded and will be available via the council's YouTube pages. So general process in terms of each item on the agenda. Usually the relevant officer or the member of the public who's asking a question will give a brief introduction. Councillors and members of the public participating will be invited to speak by using the chat function. So if you can use the chat function to indicate when you want to speak. And our committee manager will be checking our Democratic Services email just to check if any public questions that have come in that need reading out. I may take a break, or if anyone wants a break, do let me know. Pop something in the chat. We've got a relatively short agenda, but we'll see how we go. So we move on then to item 2, which is declarations of interest. And if you could indicate in the chat function if you've got any, if you want to speak or get any comments. Oh, I've noticed in the chat function that Councillor Martin Smart is here, present, but his camera's off at the moment. So thanks, Martin. And no declarations of interest. If something comes to mind as we get to the actual item, then feel free to raise any declaration of interest then. Jenny, I noticed you popped in the chat. Do you want to just mention that?
Yes,
I
am a member of Parkinson's UK, which just means I make a small donation every year. And we have, I think, speakers from 2 of the mayor's charities this year. And of course, I am mayor. But that doesn't sort of, I don't think that makes much difference, actually. I don't think it, I've declared the interest there, but it.
No. Well, we've got speakers tonight from both your charities, I believe, haven't we, Councillor Goldthorpe Wood? So it might be helpful if when we get to the speakers or yourself, if in the chat you want to put any links in terms of donating or giving to those charities, that could be helpful. Okay, so nothing else in terms of declaration of interest. Agenda item 3 are the notes of the previous North Area Committee. That's on the 27th of February 2023. They're on the agenda you should have available. Have you got any comments at all relating to the notes from the last meeting? Again, pop in the chat if you want to speak. No. Welcome, Councillor Ray. I went through the roll call earlier, but thanks for being here.
Sorry to be late. I had
okay.
the whole thing.
Yeah, don't worry. Okay, if there are no comments on the notes of the meeting of the last North Area Committee, what I'm going to do now is, under Council Procedure Rule 4.2.1, is to exercise my discretion as chair to alter the agenda order, and I'm going to bring forward the open forum item, including, for the start of the item, our 2 guest speakers. So I'm going to take the 2 guest speakers, and then we'll go to the open forum questions. So if I can invite Keith Howlett from the Cambridge branch of Parkinson's UK to speak to the committee about the work that is done in Cambridge, I think in particular north of the city. So welcome, Keith, and do take it away.
Thank you very much indeed. Good evening, councillors. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to address you. I'm Keith Howlett, and I'm the Membership Secretary for the Cambridge branch of Parkinson's UK. My connection to Parkinson's is my late wife, Jan. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2013, 2 years later with Lewy body dementia. I was her primary carer, and from 2016 onwards, she was regularly hospitalised. And to give me some respite from care responsibilities, I employed carers to look after her so I could get to play golf a couple of times a week. In 2019, she was hospitalised again, but such was her condition, she was granted fast-track continuing healthcare for palliative care. Much to everybody's surprise, she survived for 3 years and not the few weeks that were anticipated. As a family, we're unbelievably grateful to Cambridge Manor, who gave loving care and kept her alive. And of course, to the NHS for the CHC funding. To give something back to, I felt that I ought to volunteer at Cambridge Manor and did so throughout COVID. I'm very pleased I did. It gave me something to do during COVID. It gave me the opportunity to put something back into society. And of course, I was able to see my beloved wife. She passed peacefully July last year. Parkinson's affects 150,000 people in the UK and over 12 million worldwide. The public perception of Parkinson's is tremor, but the reality can be much, much worse. Rigidity, freezing of gait, frozen facial muscles, loss of balance, pain, fatigue, lethargy, loss of voice, slurred speech, cognitive issues, loss of smell, loss of taste, constipation. And any combination of those can apply in most cases. I think the one thing you can say is that if you've seen one person with Parkinson's, you've seen one person with their particular breed of Parkinson's. There's currently no cure. The platinum standard drug levodopa was first synthesized over 100 years ago and was used first to treat Parkinson's in the early 60s. The drug brings with it numerous unwanted side effects, aggravated and uncontrolled movements, dyskinesia and dystonia. This is a progressive degenerative condition which ultimately brings the sufferer to immobility and being bedbound, and was first and all the associated issues associated with being bed down. The condition places unimaginable burdens on loved ones who inevitably become primary carers. Parkinson's UK states no one should suffer Parkinson's alone. Such is the way of the health service at the moment. Many, when diagnosed, are provided with very little guidance as to where to turn or what to do. Hence, there's only 50,000 members of Parkinson's UK. Here in Cambridge, however, we're blessed to have Addenbrooke's, the Van Geest Brain Repair Centre, the Neurological Research Departments of the university, all working to help the people with the condition to find a cure. The branch is delighted to have one of the world-leading experts in Parkinson's, Professor Roger Barker, as our honorary president, and he addresses us on an annual basis, telling us where he's at and what he's about. We have regular talks from young students who are devoting themselves to finding a cure for this disease. First hospitals in the UK to have a permanent Parkinson's specialist nurse, providing guidance and advice towards staff caring for inpatients with Parkinson's. And initially that was funded by Parkinson's UK. Similarly, the Cambridge and Peterborough Foundation Trust have a dedicated team of community specialist Parkinson's nurses, a much, much larger team than the majority of foundation trusts. And I'm delighted to say that we have an enviable link with the specialist nurses. So what of our local branch? Our membership database is around 400 people. Historically, the Cambridge branch has met at the David Rayner building at Scottsdale's in Great Shelford on the last Friday of each month. It was here where I met Councillor Gawthorpe Wood when she was our treasurer. Jenny, we miss you a lot. We'd love to see you back in when you've relinquished some of your responsibilities. During COVID, we held regular cuppa and cake Zoom meetings every 2 weeks just to keep people in touch. We have an open door and we have a steady flow of newly diagnosed joining the branch at our monthly meetings. We do what we can that is practical to make them welcome, provide literature and ensure that they are given a meeting buddy to help break the ice and to reassure. There are no fees for being a member of our branch. Our funds are raised by events, donations, legacies, collections, and being a nominated charity. Just as an aside, amongst our members is Councillor Richard Robertson, who has first-hand experience of Parkinson's. The branch celebrated its 40th anniversary last year. We held an anniversary event at Fitzwilliam College. We were entertained by Paul Mayhew Archer, a person with Parkinson's. Paul was the co-writer with Richard Curtis of The Vicar of Dibley. And mentioning above collections, Paul spoke about collecting outside supermarkets. Apparently, there are restrictions when collecting with a can. You're not allowed to rattle the can in front of somebody. That, of course, has presented a bit of a challenge to people with Parkinson's. Since COVID, we have been looking at how we can move from being a South-centric organisation. In association with the Arlington Manor Care Home over at Girton and with Cambridge Manor Care Home on Milton Road, we now hold regular cafes on the first Tuesday at Arlington and on the third Thursday at Cambridge Manor. These are early days. The Cambridge Manor Cafe has been well supported, but at the moment the Arlington Cafe has been somewhat disappointing. We run yoga and active with Parkinson sessions, but these are again south of the city, and we're investigating possible venues and activities in the north of the city. And we're open to suggestions, and if any of the councillors have got thoughts, we'd be delighted to pursue them. Finally, on behalf of the committee and members of the Cambridge branch of PUK, thank you for inviting me to address you. I'm very appreciative that you've rejigged your agenda in order I can go and have dinner with somebody in Bedford this evening. To you, Jenny, thank you very much for choosing Parkinson's to be one of your mayoral charities. We wish you every success in this special year. Thank you. And if anybody's got any questions, I'd be delighted to try and answer them for you.
Great, yeah, thanks very much, Keith. That's really much appreciated. Very informative, and I'm sure we'll want to do the best to support you in terms of north of the city in particular.
Yeah.
Any questions? Right, I've got. If you can pop your questions in the chat if possible, but nevertheless, I've got Councillor Carling. Councillor Carling.
Hello, yeah, thank you very much for that, Keith. Really, I was just wondering is there anything else that we can do to support you from the policy perspective, or just any thoughts really on what we can do to help?
Wow. I suppose I really should have thought of that question coming, hadn't I? I think things like open toilet facilities, the care toilet facilities are very important, because lots of people are constipated or on drugs to relieve that, and toilet access is unbelievably important. And I guess that falls within your remit. I think disability access is always an issue, but the equality legislation is beginning to sort that out. I know when I was pushing Jan around in a wheelchair in the sort of her final years, the city is pretty good. So I don't think there's anything specific, but if there is, maybe I can come back to you and advise, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, I got a comment in the chat from Councillor Gorsuch Wood about the difficulty with social care and support. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Oh,
If you've got a question, councillors or anyone, then if you just type "speak" in the chat, then I'll take the question from you.
oh, social care and support is a major headache for people with Parkinson's. So trying to get care provided through social services is incredibly difficult. It appears Parkinson's tends to afflict people that have had good jobs and invariably have got decent level of savings, so they're precluded or excluded from care. Whilst I was buying in care, we got through 6 figures in a very short period of time in buying in care, and certainly the cost of social care in care homes is prohibitively expensive. If the NHS hadn't picked up the bill, it would have certainly destroyed our families' savings. So, but that's a bigger picture. That's, I think, well outside your remit. But getting
Yes, well, obviously,
getting support from social services is very difficult.
Yeah, yes, and obviously it's something of a county council remit. But I'll just take the questions first of all, and we might come back to that. But I've got Councillor Bird with a question.
Thank you, Keith.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your presentation. I've been to the Parkinson's group meetings as well a few years back. Very interesting. And of course, we have the meeting up here at the Methodist Church, at Green End Road. And as you know, it's Carers Week this week.
Yes.
And we need to keep plugging that and letting people know. The situation is dire for carers. Not just the carers that turn up at your home, but you as looking after your partner, your husband, whatever. You're a carer as well. And like they said this week, there's money there that the government have got to help families that are caring for a partner or whatever, and people are not claiming it. And I think this is something we really need to push. So I'll be doing my best that way to try and push that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
you mentioned it. You mentioned you visited our meetings. Any of you are very welcome to come to any of our meetings. If anybody wants to address our meetings, we'd be delighted. We'd be delighted to see you. If any of you want to turn up on the first Thursday or first Tuesday or third Thursday, either of those care homes, 2:30 in the afternoon, you'll be very welcome. Very, very welcome.
Great.
Thank you,
No,
Keith.
thanks. Yeah, thanks, Keith. I've got a question next from Councillor Wade.
Hello, Keith, again. Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to raise awareness that the Meadows Community Centre, which is a pretty new facility, they've got a big shared toilet and shower facility, and I think sometimes people aren't aware of that, and I think we should perhaps try and raise that and make that known to more groups as well, because I think several of the other community centres probably have good facilities too that people just aren't aware of. And
you're mentioning the Meadows. I drove through Arbury a couple of weeks ago and saw the Meadows, and I thought that's got to be the ideal location for a fitness group north of the city, and maybe even a cafe.
absolutely, that's in the planning, I think.
Who should I talk to at the Meadows? Because anybody?
Yeah, it's in the pipeline.
Right.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's
Thank you.
imminent. Yeah, so I'm told.
Good.
Yeah, I think Keith, we can definitely liaise with the New Meadows Centre about opportunities there for your group.
Brilliant. That's wonderful.
Okay.
We'd be only too pleased to participate and try and get something organised there.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I haven't got anyone else wishing to speak in the chat. Okay, Councillor
Jenny's
Gorthrock Wood.
waving.
Yeah. Councillor Gorthrock Wood.
Okay, I'll just come back. We used to, in fact, Parkinson's did used to have yoga classes at the old Meadows, and then they had, you used to have hydrotherapy. It wasn't hugely well attended, and unfortunately, I think the therapist has retired or moved away, and that was at Chesterton Pool, at Chesterton College Pool. But I'd be really pleased to see, you know, more exercise and things. And of course, the cafe should be opening as soon as the till lines are in place up at the Meadows.
Yeah.
But their staff and Danny, the manager, are, you know, always, you know, they're. I'm sure if you phoned up or popped round, they'd be happy to talk to you.
Okay, I will do. You mentioned yoga. We have just started a yoga group, and we're about to explore the possibility of moving that north of the city, and Meadows may well be the ideal location. You mentioned aquatherapy. One of the issues with the Chesterton Pool is that it is heated not to a high temperature, and we're currently exploring a guy who runs a swim school and has a very highly heated pool in Caldicot, which is northwest of the city, not in the city, but northwest of the city, and we're hoping to get that off the ground in the next couple of months.
And I was also just thinking, you used to do sorry, this sounds like a list of you used to do, you used to do music therapy, because we're fortunate to have a good music therapy department at Anglia Ruskin. And I think there was a lady, I can't remember where the lady lived, who was, she again may not be doing it, but we actually had that at Arbury Community Centre.
Do you?
Well,
music therapy is wonderful for people with Parkinson's because it helps with this voice control and projecting the voice, breathing activities. So because of COVID, we lost a number of our therapists. they retired, decided they didn't want to pursue it. And so we're slowly picking up the pieces and trying to get activities back together. But music therapy north of the city would be a wonderful activity.
I also really would encourage any councillors, and I know Jerry spoke to the Parkinson's Cambridge, to contact Keith, or they can come via me to get people's emails, because I think it'd be wonderful if they came along to your, north of the river groups.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you.
Maybe I can send Sarah some contact information.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, Keith. I think if you can send us your the contact details, and obviously you can liaise to Councillor Gorswatt Wood as well.
Yeah.
But we've had some helpful comments, I think, in terms of some support and help that we could give,
That's
particularly
wonderful.
working at Meadows Centre. So we will continue. We'll follow all that up and liaise with you and give you all the support we can. But thanks very much for attending and presenting about Parkinson's and work in Cambridge in particular.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you for rejigging your agenda. Much
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Keith. Bye.
So long. Bye now.
Okay, we can move on to our second of our guest speakers, Sarah Crick from the Red Hen Project. And Sarah, I noticed in the chat you wanted to share some slides. I just want to check that is possible technically with our committee manager producer.
Yeah,
Yep,
yes,
right.
Sarah's already on it.
Yeah, excellent. There we go. Okay, take it away then, Sarah. Sarah Crick, that is.
Yeah. See, thanks for inviting us. Nice to see some familiar faces that I know. Really disappointed not to make Jenny's, and I can't remember the official name of your, not an induction, is it? A mayoral? It's got a special name. Your ceremony. I understand that we had a really strong presence there, and we had our red t-shirts and sweatshirts, and we made a bit of impact. So I had it. So just sorry I couldn't make it. I have a short set of slides. Yes, I can't see you all now. You, given where you're based and your patch, know who we are. See, everybody might, but can people give thumbs up if they know roughly who we are? I can't. A general yes?
Yes.
General, yes, great. And the other thing I've stripped out of my PowerPoint decoration is all the reasons why we exist, because my assumption is if you're a councillor in the north, you know exactly why we exist. So I'm not going to give you my spiel about tough it is for families living in Cambridge generally and specifically in the north. So all of that stuff, I am going to assume, rightly so, that you guys are already experts in. So the other big thing is this is my first outing of our 25th anniversary new logo. Well, it's not a new logo, it just has the 25. We are just about to start celebrating our 25th year. So it's a wonderful timing with Jenny choosing us as one of our charities. So here's our new special 25th brand. So what do? We support our community in CB4 to raise happy, healthy and independent children, and we work directly with families in positive, confident parenting and cooperative relationships with schools and families. You probably all read that. I have to keep saying it because it's our new mission and vision, so I have to get it drummed into my own head. So we are a vital micro charity. There are 7 of us, and actually that's equivalent of about 4.5 to 5 full-time employees. You're very lucky in the north because we are here just for you. We are only in CB4, and we've only ever been in CB4 over the past 25 years. We have a lot of other parts of the city and parts of the county that ask us to set up red hens in other parts, but I think in the past we've been governed by a board of governors, a board of trustees that were very much connected to our schools, and they were keen to stay embedded within the postcode. just been through a strategic planning process, and our number one aim is no matter what we do, so if we choose to grow in the future, it must only ever support and deepen our work in CB4. So that CB4 focus is front and centre of everything that we'll do in the future. So we focus on those families that are experiencing challenges. More often than not now, they're multiple and complex challenges, and where we come from in our roots, a big focus is to overcome barriers to education as a route to get out of often a cycle of challenges and problems, often focused around poverty and deprivation. There's early intervention, one-to-one family workers in the home. Now, this might be a surprise, what I'm going through, to those people that may have only come across us during COVID. We were very much hid a light under a bushel, and those people who knew about us will only ever have good things to say about us before. During COVID, we gained quite a reputation because we were one of the few organisations out on the street and delivering really practical help to families, food, resources, etc. But actually, that's kind of a side gig, and we've been spending the last year and 18 months kind of change the perception back to people understanding what our real job is, and it's this one-to-one relational work with families. We do have outreach activities that complement that, and part of that is delivering emergency food and other items, but it's very much a side gig. So this is some of the red hens. So importantly, what we do leads to significant change. So children have improved life chances, improved family relationships, reduced isolation, better engagement in the community. And importantly, all our work is underlined by this view that we need to get families independent and reduce their reliance on statutory services. I'll share the deck afterwards, but you can link through to our latest independent external evaluation, and there's links to some of our case studies. We have just done our theory of change, which may be something you are au fait with, and it may be something quite new to you. It's a charity thing. Basically, this one piece of paper should describe exactly why we're needed, what the needs in our community, what we do to meet those needs, what our values are, the green bits, how we do the work, and then our short-term outcomes and our long-term outcomes and our overall goal. I'm not going to go through it in depth, but we're quite proud of that. It's been a big piece of work to try and document that in an easy way. So again, we focus on the individual needs of each family. It's about reducing isolation, engagement with the schools, and it's about independence. Very specifically, we only work in CB4 with families with at least one child aged 3 to 11. And the referrals come from our referral partners, which are our primary schools that we work with in CB4, Arbury, Grove, and St Lawrence's at the moment, and also Orchard Park, although I'm guessing Orchard Park falls into South Cambs. There is a lot of crossover. There's a lot of families who live in the north that go across to Orchard Park and vice versa. It's really hard to separate them too. We also have a new referral partner this year, which is 100 Houses, which is really exciting because it's another source of referrals, another source of financial support for us. But it's also, I think, a really positive move because housing is such a big issue for families, and it's nice to see a housing provider recognise their responsibility for their tenants. So we're really excited about that. So this kind of demonstrates what happens when we work with a family. I should actually have it on slide. And then, when it works, or it doesn't. So the items in black are some of the typical reasons why we might have a referral. We might have a problem with attending school. Parents might have go to school explaining they're having problems with emotional resilience, behaviour management at home. Once we start working with a family, we start to uncover what the real reasons are behind that. So actually, the problems at home are caused by some of the problems below here. And then actually what's below them are some more deep-seated issues. But because we work with families over a long time, we kind of peel back the layers of the onion and we get to the core problems. so much help and intervention that is provided skims at the surface, and you really need to get to the root of the problem if you really want to make sustainable change. So surrounding that core work with a family worker that can last 6, 9, often over 12 months, you're working with a family worker. We have outreach activities that surround that. People can access before they have intensive support, and even if they don't end up having intensive support, can access these. During, so we really encourage a lot of families, they need to find their own networks. They need to find their own peer support. And through the outreach activities, our family workers are trying to encourage them to come along to our drop-ins, for example. And then these are really important after you finish work, in an intensive piece of work, because it allows families to come back into the fold as such, back under our wing when something's not going well. You know, life doesn't, you don't have a challenge and then it fixes and then it's great. You have a challenge and then you'll have another challenge and another challenge, and our role is to help families prevent those small challenges from becoming a crisis. So where do we fit in? Some of you may be aware of this. This is the Cambridge and Peterborough Safeguarding Board continuum of care. It's often called the windscreen. So on the left-hand side is more universal services. So you go into a child and family centre and go to a playgroup. Right-hand side of the windscreen is you're having your children taken away from you. You've got court proceedings. And families move around that continuum. Sometimes they move up it, sometimes they move down it. Sometimes, you know, emerging needs stay emerging ideally, and they get help and they come back down again. But this is the local authorities' preventative, targeted, and then specialist. So social care is specialist services. We sit bang in the middle and are constantly being pulled more to the right-hand side, which is not ideal, but because of the strains and stresses in those services, statutory services, we're being pulled more and more to the right-hand side. We work really closely with the local authority and the family workers from the early help team, for example. We did a 12-month project specifically extending their resources and carrying about 20 families for a year. And our relationship with them is really strong. Only yesterday, my head of service, head of delivery, was meeting with one of their senior managers, and we were going through all the cases that we hold and checking their history and whether or not there'd been social care involvement in the past, etc. And out of about 30 cases, almost all of them had some kind of intervention with social care before. So that gives you an indication of the level of work that we're doing. It's not your general mum that walks in off the street with some, you know, wants some advice about sleep. It can be quite targeted and complex. I'm going to whiz through all of these. So key strengths is that deep and trusting relationship. We're working with mums now who we worked with when they were children 25 years ago. Families work with us where they won't work with other organisations because their friends and their parents have a positive story to tell about us, so we are trusted. The other thing that's quite unique is it's long term. We don't walk away. We don't do just 6 visits if you're lucky and then go. It's persistence, and you're in there for the long term. It can take 3 or 4 months to even form even the most basic relationship with a family who's in crisis. We are one of the few organisations that are still in the family home. That was really important. It's really important to school staff. We provide an extra pair of eyes. We can provide a translation service, a mediation service between the school and family when things aren't going bad. We have strong links and collaborations through the community and that have been developed over years. We are highly regarded and respected by other services. And I think people saw during COVID, we were able to, because of our size and because we're not a statutory service, we can respond quickly. We can be inventive, and we can respond to needs. Our challenges, I talked earlier about the greater needs. They're huge and growing all the time, and then the strain on the statutory bodies. including the schools, social care, early help, mental health services. We're seeing that every day. And officially we're early intervention, but we are constantly being pulled into higher level cases. We currently are based out of a small room in the Allier Future Business Centre, bang slap in the middle of CV4. For us, we were based in King's Hedges School. It's really important for families that we're not in school. It makes us more accessible. Not all the families have good relationships with their school, and it's important that we're outside of the school boundaries. We're seeing an unrelenting growth in need and increase in complexity, and we need to grow in order to meet that need. Our biggest thing, as always, with the small charities is financial sustainability. We were funded by the lottery. We've grown, and this year's we need £270,000. And we are far more visible now than we have been in the past, and we have to be because we're trying to gain support from all sorts of places, anywhere and everywhere. We continue to deepen our partnerships and nurture new collaborations, and continue to respond, I think, to families' needs, I would say. I was prepared for the question, how can you help? We have a strategic plan. If you want to know more, please read it. You can see what our key aims are for the next couple of years. Look at our theory of change, and that will then allow you to spread the word. The most important thing that we find in Cambridge is full of people who are shocked and horrified when you tell them that it's the most unequal city in England, and there are a lot of well-meaning people that want to help. So the more we spread the word about what the issues we face, and more importantly what we do to address them, we get more and more people that are willing to support us and help us, connect us to other possible supporters. You can always become a supporter, and obviously volunteer. So those are the kinds of things we need, because I think you guys already in your roles are tackling the underlying causes of what we face. I can't tell, you're already doing that. If you could just help spread the word about how we address it and find us a couple of millionaires, we can still be around for another 25 years helping the families in your community. Well, that's it from me, unless hopefully you've got a few questions. The whistle stop tour.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Sarah. That was really interesting. I think a lot of us do have quite a bit of awareness of the Work for a 10 project, but there's a lot of extra information there that's really helpful. I've got a question from Councillor Wade, who's indicated in the chat to speak.
Hi.
Hello, Sarah. Thank you. As somebody that's had a bit of experience in school, working with children after school, and 2 children with dyslexia and the spectrum, I'm aware to a certain point of the challenges that some children face at school. And I'm wondering, do you have links with the Dyslexia Association and such? And are you interested in volunteers that have got a background in working with children that might feel that's one of the challenges they face at school, or is that too sort of simplistic? I'm not sure whether that would fit with your. It
would probably fit with the schools, because they're the ones that are seeing the children during the day. We do go in and do work directly with the children in school. He's focusing on the family at home and what's going on at home. We do have links, and we try and encourage our families to engage with organisations such as Spectrum, if you come across them, and which are a fantastic organisation. Pinpoint, although Pinpoint can be tough for some of the families that we deal with. It can be tough if you're living in poverty and trying to access those. They can tend to be pitched at a certain level. The schools very may well do. We've also just about to strike up a relationship with an organisation called Dyslexia Box, who are also based at Allier. I don't know if you've come across them.
Yeah, I wonder, because I know from personal experience that assessments are very expensive if your child doesn't hit that particular level, which is always being raised. And that's why I ask, because I know it can be a barrier for a lot of families to get that assessment done.
It makes it totally inaccessible for most families, really. Yes, it's awful.
So
Right,
that's an area
thanks.
that perhaps you could raise for, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. You know, I think we're here to try and help as much as we can, but I appreciate the difficulties. I've got a question from Councillor Bird.
Hi, Jerry.
Thank you. Hiya, you're right. Okay, so Sarah, thanks for your thanks for your presentation. It was great. Just a couple of things really. I was glad to hear about 100 housing, which is very important, and I know the City Council always help as well. But I was shocked not to hear that Shirley School, you don't come to Shirley School in East Chesterton?
We did. Unfortunately, they withdrew. I think they had a with their budget. My understanding is they've got a deficit budget, which some of the other schools have. And unfortunately for the schools, they need to decide where to spend their money. They also, most of our schools also work with Blue Smile, so therapeutic art therapy. All our schools are under huge pressure. And they do contribute to our costs. They have to contribute something because we have to run. It's a fraction of the actual cost. Shirley made the decision to withdraw.
Right.
It's a real shame. We're hoping to the partnership with 100 Houses, because we still see families and they access our outreach. We don't turn people away, but we can't do intensive work because that intensive work really depends on a strong relationship with the school. So, for example, Arbury, we meet with them termly, we sit around a table and we discuss a case and we're talking about what's going on in school, what are they seeing in school, what do we see at home, and it's a real collaborative approach. So it's kind of love Shirley to come back on board. We've got space if they wanted to. Out of my hands, unfortunately. Okay, we're hoping the 100 houses, because there's so many 100 houses, homes in that patch, we're hoping we'll pick up some that way.
Okay, lovely. And also, just the last thing, can you let us know if you do any events or anything, Sarah, so us councillors can come along, see what you're doing?
I hope it'll all be at Arbury Carnival.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. Thanks very much, Sarah.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. And yes, as before with the previous speaker, Keith from Parkinson's UK, the Cambridge branch, obviously we have your contact details. We're all very aware of what you do in the area anyway. And as you say, your reputation is excellent, and I know that. And we'll do all we can to support you. I haven't, Councillor Gorsuch would have said she'd like to speak after any other questions. I don't have any other questions at the moment. So, Councillor Gorsuch, would you like to kind of maybe follow up, no doubt, in respect of it being one of your charities too, I think?
Yeah, first of all, I would encourage councillors to get involved in any way they can. I did wonder what fundraisers you're having this summer, because I know you had some in some of the better, very much better off parts of Cambridge.
Right.
So that's the first question. Second one, I did wonder what difference it made being up at Alia, in the rather than based in the school, which I think was King's Hedges School. And I wondered if you were still doing the cooking activities and things like that. And then there's the coffee mornings. And would you like councillors to come to those? And are you seeking other volunteers to do things?
Always. So, first one on fundraising. It's tricky. We don't want to. So we're trying to focus on our fundraising on the parts of Cambridge that have got of money, and rather than put pressure on our families and the community that we live in, that is the cost of living. So, for example, last week or the week before, we did a coffee morning on the Science Park in Bradfield Centre. We also have Bradfield Centre in the middle of the Science Park. Have given us free membership of their working space, and we raised nearly £1,000 from a cake stall there. Now, cake stalls, and everyone who's done a cake stall, it's not the kind of money you usually make in a cake stall, but targeting people that affluent and have lots of disposable income, we hope to spend, raising money costs money. We've only just recruited someone to help me with that. And we want to make sure every fundraising activity is targeted on those people that can give money. We don't want to put any strains on our community to do that. There's plenty of other parts of Cambridge that have got plenty of money. Thank you very much to help me. One thing that we do have coming up, which we've just we're still waiting on the council to confirm, we can use Jesus Green in September. We're going to do a 25k walk, run, jog, row, whatever you like. 25 kilometres to celebrate, and it's a loop of the of Jesus Green, the closest place to CB4, but the right side of town to hopefully attract people that will pay us £25 to do that walk. People can sponsor, can gather sponsorship, but we're hoping to tap into groups of people who will come and walk 25k and donate £25. And ideally, we are trying to do a campaign where we find 250 people to donate £25 a month regularly. And again, we're trying to be careful with that. We're going to target those mums who have children in private schools in Cambridge. So we're trying to be really savvy. We've had a couple of really good relationships with the private schools where their PTAs have raised money for us. Actually, we want to try and tap into that because 250 people paying £25 a month would make a huge difference for us. So we're trying to be savvy, like I say, because raising funds costs money. So there will be other stuff that's coming up. And today, as soon as we've been waiting to hear from the City Council whether it's okay, you have to put in an application to use the park. So, and then you asked about being based in the Elia. Actually, much more positive, Jenny. Families are far more likely to pop in there and see us. It's really hard if you're a mum and you're not at that school, it's hard to walk into that school. If you're a mum at that school and you don't have a positive relationship with that school, it was even harder. So actually being in the Elia is far more positive. To be honest, my plan has always been to have family workers out in the community, and we've already been into we went to see the Meadows in its last few weeks of completion, and ideally we meet with families in their home because you get a lot of insight from being in the home, but then it can often be we want to try and encourage that family out and engage in their community. So we'll meet and take them for a coffee at the community centre in Arbury or the Meadows or all these different places. So it's far more about us not being locked behind the doors, but out in the community. So yes, the move to Elia is positive. It's not a great room. If anybody's been in there, it's got a bike in it that we use when we're trying to be eco-friendly. It's got various donations. It's not the most pretty room, but it's practical in that it's people, the family workers drive past the door in between visits. They're literally going in there, having a wee, probably writing a few notes and going to the next family home. So it's really practical. 3 courses. Remember, you come into one, Jenny, and having meatballs and pasta. Only yesterday we went back to our first face-to-face cooking course with the same lady, Hilary, who you've met. During COVID, we developed that to an online cookery, a bit like HelloFresh, where you get the ingredients delivered to you and then you cook them. We did that during COVID, which was really successful. But we wanted to try and get back to doing something in person, which we're now doing at the Methodist in Chesterton. We've got 3 Wednesdays, and the first one was literally yesterday. That was cooking. And then coffee mornings. They used to be on a Monday at the Church of the Good Shepherd. We've moved it to Tuesday because there were several other groups meeting on a Monday. And we're trying to work in collaboration as much as possible. So if people like Grow Kids could set one up. So also, if you do it on a Monday, you keep missing the bank holidays. So we were missing out opportunities to see families, especially this year. There's been so many bank holidays. So we now have Tuesday. It's moved to Tuesday at the Church of the Good Shepherd. That is very much focused. It's got a strong focus towards little ones, so under school age. So more like a traditional mother and baby group, but with this extra level of skill there, and that you've got a qualified family worker there and a project worker there. Wednesdays are in Chesterton, and that's focused on adults only. At the moment, it's just mums, and it's focused around physical and mental well-being. It's a small group, but it's really powerful what it's managed to achieve. We've got mums who haven't been out of the house. You know, they hadn't come out of the house since COVID, and we've got them. You know, one particular mum, it's been transformational for her getting out to that group, focusing on her well-being. She's now back at work. Is run by that group. They decide what they want to do. One week they can be doing yoga, and the next week they'll be doing art therapy, and the next week they'll be doing pole dancing. So it's a real eclectic mix. It's a kind of like you can try anything. And we just we have a family worker who's really skilled in physical and mental well-being, but we also pull in other organisations and other people to come along and deliver like a taster session, which is really important for us because we don't want them to be dependent on us. We want to expose them to different people under our trusted, you can trust this person, they're coming in, Red Hen like them, you can like them too, because going to a new group, going to start a new sports club or whatever is a really big deal if you're suffering, you have poor mental health. That's Wednesday. Thursdays is the group at Harbury Community Centre that we opened during COVID because we needed a bigger space, and that took off. That's a more general group, and we have guest people coming in to speak at that. And then Friday we have our relatively new group that we started in Orchard Park, because Orchard Park is a real desert for that kind of group. So that's a friendly group that meets on a Friday morning straight from school. So we now don't have one coffee morning. We have 4 groups of different types and different flavours, and we've spread it across CB4 as well, because we have tended to do most stuff at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Arbury. We wanted to make sure it was accessible to more people across the whole of CB4.
Great.
I've spoken a lot.
Thanks, Sarah. There's a huge amount going on. Can I suggest liaising obviously through the council and Jenny, but that maybe you get a list of all the events and activities and so on, and we'll support them as best we can. But that's really helpful. Thanks very much for coming and talking to us and
My
telling
pleasure.
us a lot
Thank
more.
you for the opportunity.
Yep. Okay. Great. And thanks very much for your time. It's appreciated.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, we're going to continue with the sort of the next part of the open forum, and that is the questions submitted in the open forum. I've got questions from Katie Neville-Jones and 2 from Lillian Rundblad. I know Lillian wants to just make a point of information, I think, on one of them. But if I can take the question from Katie Neville-Jones first, from the Garden Walk Residents Association. So, Katie, would you like to explain the sort of the context of your question? Thanks.
Yeah, so good evening. I just wanted to join the meeting on behalf of the Garden Walk Residents Association. The main one for the open forum was about the poor conditions of our roads, and in particular the walkways. So all of those primary schools that the previous charity just mentioned, they're all reliant on people walking to school, or cycling to school or scooting to school. But the primary schools, the main way to get to them, and the secondary schools, is to walk. Living in Cambridge, the commute along the pavements is hazardous. All along Garden Walk, Victoria Road, Carlisle Road, the pavements are littered with steep slopes, damaged curbs, they're too narrow, overgrown, uneven surfaces. So for the majority of families trying to get their children to school, it is hazardous. And if you've got more than one child, like the charity was working with children aged 3 to 11, the chances are under 3-year-old, if you're pushing a sibling in a pushchair, it's near impossible to keep on the pavements in some places, and passing anyone is particularly difficult on anywhere like Victoria Road with a pushchair. And I have a fairly substantial pushchair, and I find it incredibly difficult physically and emotionally doing that same run 4 times a day on the surfaces that are provided and cared for. And then when you've made it to school, some schools, the provision for actually locking up and securing any bicycles or anything like that. I'm particularly thinking about Park Street, Primary, other side of Jesus Green. There is no provision for locking up bikes, and then bikes get locked up to the railings, and the pavement is then blocked for the children and for pedestrians for the rest of the day. And I also feel for people with disabilities, and the reason we don't see people leaving the houses in wheelchairs is probably because the pavements are so difficult for people. So that was my point relating to that. And my second point will come into the agenda item 5 about the impact of the Milton Road project on our roadways. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. We'll take any questions about your first point. Essentially what you talk about mainly, I think, are highways issues, so more in the county council remit, certainly in terms of the state of the pavements. I don't know if either of our county councillors here would like to comment at all. Yeah, Councillor Bird.
Thank you for that. I understand where you're coming from, as I use a wheelchair myself. So yes, the pavements are very bad. And what I can suggest is I can ask one of the highway officers to come out and walk around the area you're on about, and I'll get one of the local councillors that live or are part of your area to go with them as well. And I hope that will help. And they'll have a look and see if there's anything can be done. Also, I'll get in touch with the exec for open spaces to see what can be done about the hedges as well.
Thank you.
I
have
hope
reported.
that helps.
Yeah, I have reported the hedges, but they've been trimmed a matter of millimetres and not at the bottom where your pushchair will get caught in the vegetation. I did invite a couple of the local councillors before the previous election to come out. I've got time. I would love to take someone on the route and see where the pushchair nearly goes into the road, where the scooter and the slope go down. And I'm sure there'd be other residents, some with mobility issues from the street and the local community that would join me as well. So I would really welcome that opportunity. I'm very happy to help organise that.
If you don't mind emailing me your contact details, then I can get the highways officer to contact you personally as well.
Great. I will do that through the meeting, after the meeting.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. I've got a question from Councillor Carling. Councillor Carling.
Hello, yeah, I had a couple of things. The first was just about the hedges. I am the responsible executive councillor for that, so I'm more than happy to liaise with you after the meeting, and we can have a chat about that. You also mentioned Carlisle Road, and I think there's ongoing discussions on Carlisle Road about potentially putting a modal filter down there. And I was just wondering kind of to what extent that might help with the problem with traffic and such like, if you have any views on that.
I have to say that road has been transformed by the bollards and things that have been put down there, which is absolutely fantastic. It's more, if you look at the pavement on either side, one pavement is so narrow you can't get the pushchair down it, and walking down it. It also slopes on an angle like this, so if you're walking and trying to hold anything up, it's incredibly difficult. And the other side, there's various steps on the pavement, and on the corner of Holland Street, the pavement slopes like this. And then there's 2 or 3 entrance points to residential areas. Tree roots on the pavement next to the park. It's literally choosing a best side and going for it. And in terms of vegetation, it's not the vegetation on that bit, it's Victoria Road, the vegetation that is my bugbear at the moment. So that's more of a busy road with traffic. The other bits are the pavement issues and the accessibility of them. But thank you, Sam, I would love to discuss later.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. Well, I've got a question from Councillor Ray. Do you want to come in,
Well-
Councillor Ray?
It's not a question, it's a comment on Katie's on the road. The issue is that there are existing pavements which are rather too narrow for the way in which the road is being used now. And where they have been repaired, they simply get broken down because the cars are mounting the pavement in order to get around parked cars. It's a very narrow street. I think what's going to solve it is a really big investment and putting in, if you like, a pavement that runs, basically removing the pavements and paving the whole street, which is a huge investment rather than simply just repairing a few broken curbstones, which will inevitably break again quite shortly. I have a meeting with Richard Preston on the 22nd of June, and this is something I will raise with him in that meeting. About the hedges, you said that they've been trimmed, but only millimetres. Who's trimmed them?
I reported it on the council website, where the zebra crossing is on Victoria Road, that the hedge was overgrown. So I presume it's been done by the council, or
Yep.
the owners of the property have had the notification and asked it to do.
Well,
I have re-reported it. It's just a constant issue. Obviously, it's lovely to have vegetation along the highways, but it's just thinking about how it's accessible and how we're making it accessible.
Yeah, if it's the homeowner that's done it, they may well have not cut it back to the level at which they should do. People are very reluctant to actually cut into hedges because you end up with a bare hedge. It will recover. If the council does it, they will cut it back properly to the boundary. So what I suspect has happened here is that the owner has received notification and gone out with their shears and done a sort of cosmetic job when what's really needed is a root and branch reduction of the width of the hedge. So I would get back onto the highways people, and I can help you with that, and make sure that that is cut back to its proper position. You know, it's tough for people, but it's, you know, if it's impinging on the pavement, it's got to go.
Yeah.
And we've done that in Oxford Road, where somebody was reluctant to do it, and the council has a sort of new procedure where they're given a month's notice. If it doesn't get done, they go in there and cut it back.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. That's very helpful. And in terms of the offers to liaise with you, Katie, and perhaps to walk about with Councillor Burton and perhaps Councillor Ray, excuse me, and
I'm very
Carling.
familiar with the issues there. As I say, that's something.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that some of the issues that have been mentioned are quite fundamental infrastructure, significant investment issues, but clearly there are also some issues in terms of just poor surfacing and bad pavements and so on that probably can be addressed in terms of the local having the local highway officer out to support, and perhaps the streets and open spaces team to look at the access and accessibility in terms of overgrown hedges and so forth. So there are some things we can probably address in the here and now, but appreciate that some of the more significant issues will require time and a lot of investment, but we can at least look at some of the issues we can address. So if I can suggest those councillors liaise with you, Katie, and we try and have a kind of something like a walkabout in the area, and at least pick out some of the things that can be addressed in the kind of, as I say, in terms of the immediate priority. That would be helpful, I hope. Thanks very much for the questions and comments.
And I think we were perhaps expecting the police on this call as well to raise and discuss some of our other concerns from the Garden Walk Association. But I think because the police aren't here, we'll save it for the next meeting. That makes more sense. If that's okay.
Yeah, okay, thanks. That's very helpful. Thanks. Can we move on to the two questions, or a question and perhaps a point of information from Lillian Rundblad? Lillian, would you just like to briefly speak to them both?
Oh, finally it unmuted me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the first question is referring to the minutes, and that is on on page number 9, regarding the book fund for a community member, Histon Road. So HRI is still open for applications, and please contact them on the address mentioned in the minutes. And that is, we offer 300 to 500 pound grants if you can, for projects within the local area. So maybe some of you that spoke earlier would be helped by having some grants. So could you just send out a reminder of that, or perhaps?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure we can do that, Lillian. I think we've all got the information in terms of your contact at histonroadmemories.uk.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Great. Okay. And your second question, which was about, well, basically referring to correspondence regarding Milton Park and Ride and A10 users, is that right? Is that
Yes,
something you'd
that
like
is-
to leave? It might be something you do want to leave until we get to the GCP item, because it's kind of
That's-
relevant,
yeah.
doesn't it?
That's okay with me, and that will, I've also sent a copy to Paul van der Balk and for him to inform the representative for the Milton Road.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you want to refer to that again or have any other points when we talk about when we come to the GCP item, that would be great. And then you have got a third question, haven't you? And that's about the Darwin Green
Disaster.
Yeah, I think it is Franklin Garden, but I think you got a bit more information
No.
about that relating to the houses
Yeah.
that had to be, I think, demolished and rebuilt, or not rebuilt yet anyway.
Well, the problem is, I found out it isn't Franklin Gardens. It is the number 2 project, which is further down by, closer to Huntington by Windsor Road, in that area. And still 36 newly built homes to be demolished. I mean, it is stunning. I can't say, we have had so much problems with the people there. But also, if you think about Franklin Gardens now, it's ongoing, and they have built the houses closest to the Briarley Walk area, and it's going on both day and night apparently, and they do have residents there do have a bit of a noise problem. So I don't know how we could do anything about improving the situation for the Briarley Walk people. There is also the taller 5-story apartment houses are coming up behind these first closest houses that affect Briarley Walk.
Just check what they are doing in terms of liaising with residents and trying to reassure them, or at least put them in the picture about what is actually being done. And I imagine that probably applies to the other homes you referred to down at the further south on the Darwin Green development. But we will
Yes,
we'll liaise with Barrett's about the information they're getting out to local residents.
that would be grateful. Also,
Okay.
the substations, we will also like to know if it's open or not, because that is the flooding. That is also just by Briarley Walk.
Yeah.
I mentioned
Okay.
that in here. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can liaise with you as well. We'll pick that up, Lillian. Okay.
that's fine. Thank you. Thank you very
Right.
much, Jack.
Okay. I don't think we have any other questions. We'll come back to you, Katie, when we get to the appropriate item regarding your other question. But we're moving on to agenda item 4, policing. It's really technically it's now agenda item 5 as we moved up the open forum item. But the policing and safer neighbourhoods item, and I'm welcoming Police Sergeant Alice Jeffrey and Sarah Steggles from the Council's Harm Reduction Antisocial Behaviour Service, and she's the manager. So if Sergeant Jeffrey and Sarah Steggles can introduce the report, and welcome to new Council Mike Black, and welcome to North Area Committee. Yes, if Sergeant Jeffrey and Sarah Steggold, if you can introduce the policing report, that would be really helpful. I don't know who wants to go first.
Oh, good evening, everyone. I'm Alice. But Sarah, are you happy if I go first?
Okay.
Cool.
Yes,
Okay,
of course.
so oh, sorry, I think I spoke over someone. No, okay. So the aim of the neighbourhood profile update is just to provide an overview of action taken since the last reporting period, identify ongoing and emerging crime and disorder issues, and provide recommendations for future areas of concern and activity in order to facilitate effective policing and partnership working in the area. At the North Area Committee meeting of the 17th of November, the committee recommended addressing the following local areas of concern: street-based drug dealing, including cuckooing, ASB and dangerous driving across the north of the city, including Fen Road and the High Street, and NOS canisters, cycle crime, as well as youth and knife crime. So lead officers and actions to be taken were agreed following the committee meeting, and the work undertaken and current situation I shall outline. So first of all, I'll talk about street-based drug dealing, including cuckooing. The action taken since the last meeting, we continue to take in referrals from partner agencies and conduct welfare visits on those potentially being exploited. The neighbourhood support team specifically target county lines across the city and have several recent successes. We continue to hold days of action utilising plainclothes patrols, which generates a number of stop searches, intelligence reports and arrest. Our current situation, so tackling drug dealing and county lines continues to remain a priority for Cambridgeshire and for us in the north. And we continue to work closely with housing providers to identify those at risk and people who are being exploited by drug dealers, and then also work with partner agents to ensure their safety. And our lead officer on that is PC Freeman. And the second area is ASB and dangerous driving across the north of the city. So Operation Staple remains the North City team's response to vehicle-based antisocial and dangerous driving. We've received information from the Road Safety and Casualty Reduction Analysis around key locations, as well as the highest risk groups for the city, which remains cyclists, pedestrians and e-scooter riders. And we continue to target these during days of action. In January, February, March, April and May, we've carried out more than 50 hours of patrol time. And since November, this has resulted in 6 arrests for various drink and drug driving offences, 5 vehicle seizures, 15 plus tickets for various driving offences, including use of mobile phones whilst driving, driving whilst disqualified, careless and inconsiderate driving, as well as other various offences. And we also conducted speed checks outside Chesterton Community College as well as Gilbert Road. So currently, we are also set up Operation Propulsion. This is an operation aimed at reducing the risk to members of the public through education and then enforcement of legislation around e-scooters on public roads. So currently we are in phase 1 of the operation, which is around education. It also includes designing a package that can be distributed to the public via online media and local publications. We currently are also stopping engaging those on e-scooters whilst out in the community and have dedicated approximately 20 plus hours to this. Predominantly words of advice were given to riders. We've also secured training for one of our local officers to be roadside tested for drugs, and that lead officer is PC Tomlin. And the next area has been cycle crime. Operation Kong is the Cambridge City response to cycle crime, tackling all aspects of the crime type from education to enforcement. There have been many successful cycle marking events that have taken place in the last 6 months, where on average at these events about 60 bikes get marked. As well as targeting prolific cycle thieves and handlers, multi-agency work with organisations such as CamCycle, there have been many successful stories of reuniting owners with their bikes and prosecuting offenders. It's very much highlighted on our social media pages, so if you follow us across our social media, then you may have noticed this. Work's ongoing, it will continue to go on, and the dedicated officer leading on OpCong is PC Tyndall. And then the last area was around youth and knife crime. So Operation Guardian is a citywide policing plan to tackle habitual knife carriers in Cambridge City. It consists of an outlined multifactorial approach through target hardening, engaging with the identified individuals, school engagement, engaging with youth services. So subjects are identified and then graded according to risk. So you get cohorts of individuals listed as significant, moderate or merging. And we have a minimum set of standards for each cohort, which involves varying degrees of intrusiveness. As expected, those in the significant category are the most intrusive, receiving bi-monthly engagement from police, linked in work with partner ages such as Youth Offender Service and school engagement. And the goal of this is to try and discourage subjects from carrying knives. So currently, it is now a force-wide initiative. We are still in the early days to establish results, but what we are noticing is there is a good level of support from all agencies, and we do have positive engagement with the majority of suspects who are on our cohorts. And I'm the lead officer for Op Guardian in the North. And that brings me to the end of our parts.
Great, thank you very much, Sergeant Jeffrey. Sarah Stegel, do you want to add anything to the comments so far?
Did you want me to go through the community safety report?
Yeah,
from
that
the
would be
City
great.
Council?
And then we can take any questions or comments on both reports.
Okay, so the City Council, in partnership with the Community Safety Partnership Boards, have been coordinating the CAMS Against County Lines project, which aims to help prevent children being criminally exploited in the movement of drugs. They've been doing sessions across secondary schools, including 3 schools in the north. There is work ongoing to expand this to make it age appropriate for younger children, so then to deliver a similar sort of programme to children of the lower age group. The City Council also coordinate the peer groups and places and meetings, which is a multi-agency meeting where we discuss concerns in the local community about young people, where they may be involved in antisocial behaviour or crime, or there may be concerns about them getting involved in those types of behaviours. We've also created posters recently to raise awareness of county lines, so members of the public have a better understanding of what that might look like. We're also attending multi-agency meetings across the city, but including the North Cambridge Collective to explain and focus on youth provision in the area, to explore and focus on youth provision in the area. So work is ongoing there. We've also carried out multi-agency work in areas where there have been community concerns or hotspot areas where there's antisocial behaviour, such in Carlton Way and other areas where residents are coming to us with concerns about particular issues in their neighbourhoods. And we do that in partnership with police, other agencies, public realm enforcement, environmental health team, councillors sometimes join us with that as well. In addition to that, there's also some public realm work ongoing with the cycle crime prevention work. So they coordinate the cycle crime task and finish group. And as part of that, they focus on 3 key areas to reduce cycle crime. So education, infrastructure and enforcement. The education is around the Save Our Cycles campaign, and that's a task group led by task group member Cam Cycle, and encourages the public to record their bikes, their frame number with description, and register the bike on the bikeregister.com, which then helps the police trace and return stolen bikes. A range of bike register events have taken place through the year, with a number of bike marking kits being funded by the police and the Crime Commissioner's office following a successful bid by the community safety team. The infrastructure, there has been an audit of the cycle stands in the city, which has included identifying opportunities for safety and security improvements to strengthen user confidence and prevent cycle-related crime. Work has been undertaken at Cambridge and North Railway stations, which could be used in designing out crime at the proposed Cambridge South station. Cambridge City Council provides best practice guidance to new residential developers, which is being updated in the context of the work being undertaken and developing the new local plan. City Council are making investments to new CCTV coverage around the city centre, and both Fitzroy and Burley Street to increase our ability to detect cycle crime and support with the positive policing outcomes. And as for the enforcement, the police continue their enforcement work and are using theft data combined with CCTV locations to make sure that they're correctly placed to capture where the cycle theft is more evident. And it's important for the public to report any crimes directly to the police by reporting online using the link in the report or by calling 101 so that it's officially recorded. And that's the end of our report.
Okay, thanks very much, Sarah. I've got the first question is from Councillor Bird. Councillor Bird.
Thank you. Thank you for your reports. I've got some concerns about drug dealing in East Chesterton. We've had reports of it, especially in Bramblefields, groups of people being there at night. And people walking their dogs say it's very intimidating. You know, they're taking drugs. The other issue I've had is I had a family contact me. They had people going in their garden and picking up drugs because they were being thrown by the street behind them over onto their garden. So late at night, she had 5 guys go in her garden, and this has happened 4 times. And she's there on her own with 6 young children. And she did report it, but nobody came to see her. They weren't interested. So I'm very concerned about that because that's a safety issue as well. So I'd like to know, have you had reports about Bramblefields, and has anyone, any officers been along there to have a look in at night? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Sergeant Jeffrey or Sarah, would you like to respond?
Oh, thank you, Councillor Bird, for your question. With regards to Bramblefields, specifically, have I personally and our team noticed an increase in reports? I haven't. However, I will go ahead and have a review of that area. Just to confirm, the people, what sort of numbers are you getting reports? How many people are reporting it to you? Just so I have an idea of who's reporting.
Does anyone can answer that? Is it a specific request? I think in terms of, is it anecdotal? Is there a kind of pattern to these reports? Can any of the councillors answer that?
Yes, there is, especially around. Sorry, I keep losing my connection tonight.
Okay.
Especially around the Bramblefields area, and they're not just older people; they're young people as well, which is a big concern.
Yeah, I imagine that anyone who's sorry to interrupt. Anything being thrown around in people's gardens or so, and if the police need to build up an incident picture, they need at least 101 to be called, so some incident can be recorded. Is that right?
Yeah, and Councillor Bird, I'll go back and I'll review that area definitely and see if we've had an increase. But if it'd be great if you could encourage those that are reporting to report it online as well, just so we can build up that picture, because it really helps us to inform dedicated patrols, so we can target specific times in hopes of catching the people who are obviously causing the residents of Bramblefields issues. If I can ask you just to encourage them to report it, that would be fab.
Okay, thanks, Alice.
Okay, that's very helpful. I've got councillors Gilderdale, Shield, Wade, and Gorsuch Wood with questions, and also Katie Neville-Jones. But if I can take Councillor Gilderdale next.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. I had a question about. Can you hear me? Sorry. I had a question about cycle theft in the Cambridge North Station, and I've been the past year I've been sitting on the cycle crime task and finish group. So I know that there's been conversations about there not being lots of data around what the levels of cycle crime are, and cycle theft particularly, are in the Cambridge North. But I spoke to a couple of residents the other day, and they'd mentioned that they had their bike stolen from Cambridge North. And my heart dropped suddenly, because I thought, this new train station would hopefully not have the same kind of cycle theft around it than the central one obviously has. And I wondered whether maybe in the future we could have a report here, or at some point speak to someone on maybe the CCTV team about how I think a lot of confusion for residents is about how they report it and whose responsibility it is for getting the CCTV, whether that's the police have access to the CCTV, or whether it's Network Rail, or whether it's East Anglia, or and I think there's a lot of confusion about how those different links kind of link up and all of that. And I wonder whether that's something that it might be helpful for us all to clarify, so that we're giving the right advice to residents in any cases of cycle theft around the train stations, because I know that is kind of an area where it's focused. But yeah, thank you. That was my only question.
Thank you, Councillor Gilded. I want to check if the police, or in terms of the work on tackling cycle crime, Sarah, is there any particular work going on around Cambridge North Station?
I think in relation to thefts and things like that, it's probably a question for the police. I'm not overly familiar with the cycle task and finish group, but I can find out more detailed information if it's needed. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Anyway, I'm sure the police have heard the message about perhaps looking to concentrate some work around Cambridge North Station. The next question I've got is from Councillor Shield.
Oh, thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for the report, and also for being here. We really appreciate it, and the residents really appreciate it. And we've agreed amongst ourselves that we're really going to try and raise awareness of North Area Committee generally, but especially the ones where you come along and give us your report, which is always really helpful. My questions, I guess, might be overlapped by much more detailed and well-informed questions from Mrs. Neville-Jones, so you may want to hear what she's got to say before you answer mine. But I've got three basic headings, which is, and a lot of it is coming out of the recent Garden Walk Residents Association, things that have been raised with me. I'm just wanting to relay them, get your ideas. First of all, on drug taking, so not this would come under the heading of the county lines work, the excellent work you're doing in terms of county lines and cookering and so on, but just as a sort of an extra dimension, which I don't think we've mentioned yet tonight, although we talked about it a lot at the Garden Walk Residents Association. It's the impact on very, very young kids who are using the play parks in the daytime. So talking about basically toddlers and young infants. And what we're aware of is that the play parks aren't just being used sort of at night. I mean, we know that there's a culture of using play parks at night for drug taking. That's one thing. But when there's drug taking going on when there are toddlers and infants around, it seems highly inconsiderate in terms of the impact upon them. So I suppose the question would be, what can be done to separate that drug taking out from where the infants are playing? That's would be that. Then my other two things are both road related. I'm really worried about speeding in the city, and I'm really worried about the brazen way in which speeding takes place, seemingly with impunity. Although I totally take on board, Alice, what you've very kindly shared with us in terms of your stats, in terms of actually there are lots of successful, there've been lots of wins in terms of getting on top of this. But my areas of concern, Histon Road, where we've successfully, thank heavens, managed to get 20 brought in from the Huntington Heston Road junction to almost the crossroads, but not quite. And that 20 zone is so important. And Lillian is among those who's campaigned hard for it for many years, and we all have. And with Richard Newcombe Court down there and so many other people coming and going with their shopping, I think it's fantastic that 20 zone is in there on Heston Road. But unfortunately, I've seen people just blatantly ignoring it and absolutely zooming up to the traffic lights. I understand and accept that the speed limit actually does change ahead of the traffic lights, and that people are allowed, if it's green, they are allowed to start going back up to 30 before they get to that junction. On the other hand, if that change of speed is happening well before the 20 zone is happening, and they're just getting away with it, and they're just taking the mickey, that's really depressing. And it also is depressing for people, let's take the residents of Richard Newcombe Court, who are thinking that it's going to be pretty much okay to cross if a vehicle's a long way off, and then lo and behold, actually no, it's not such a long way off. Why? Because they're not doing 20 at all. So that Heston Road is an area, because it's been a success story in so many ways, especially with the upgrade and the cycle lanes and everything, and it's been, I think, a success story in terms of getting that 20 zone put there. I think it would be heartbreaking if there were to be an accident along there, because people are taking the mickey with impunity. And I'll just mention 3 other areas: Perce Way, Carlton Way, and Roseford Road, all areas where I do not want to see any vehicle bombing it down there with impunity, but you get it all the time. And the number of residents who've spoken to me on Perce Way, they're worried that sooner or later, pets have died as a result of being knocked over down there. It was one of the things that should keep us all awake at night, I guess, is how long is it going to be before someone who should be sticking to well below 20, if it was up to me, I'd actually have 10 miles an hour around there. But anyway, so what can we do? We understand these places don't have speed cameras, but I don't know if there's anything that we've only got so many police. And the police are trying to do everything they can, and they're stretched in every direction. So I'm not expecting you to wave a magic wand, but if there's anything that you can say that we can all do together to get on top of this really anti-social driving, it's horrible. It's a form of bullying. It's almost like they're thumbing their noses at residents, at pedestrians, and it's really horrible. And now, third, finally, which are not as potentially life-threatening, but still really not very nice, is came up on the Garden Walk Residents Association meeting, is enforcement about people rat running on Garden Walk when there is a clearly signposted limit on vehicles. It has to be either resident or access for visiting. I don't know, I haven't seen it. I live on Carisbrooke Road, but I'm reliably informed by a number of residents that that's being again just ignored. And I'm just wondering, what can we do in a road that has a big bend in it, so it's difficult to see all the way down it, and it's difficult to maybe to prove that someone's going down there when they shouldn't be. But I think that Mrs. Neville-Jones will be able to give far more detail and a far better and more clear, more helpful and rich and vivid perception of that one, and possibly of the other things I've mentioned. But thank you so much for coming along. We really appreciate it, and it's always brilliant to get your updates. And welcome aboard, Alice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shield. What I might do, I'd just make one point actually myself, which is, we all know that there are significant capacity issues and policing resources in terms of dealing with lots of these issues. And there are other measures we can consider. Obviously, local highway improvement measures we actually have been looking at in Perce Way, for example, and potentially something that might be related in Roseford Road. So there are other measures we can look at where it's not perhaps reasonable to expect the police to be continually monitoring the breaking of 20 miles per hour, for example. But if councillors don't mind, if I can bring in Katie Neville-Jones next, just to follow up on the sort of more specific Garden Walk and Bateson Road issues that were mentioned. Can you put your question now, Katie?
Thank you, and it is really nice to see the police here as well. I think there were two issues that we've raised so far. One is the traffic, and the other is the drug use. And so I'm going to start with the drug use, if that's okay. I think my particular concern is I'm a teacher. I work in schools. I understand that there are challenges. I've worked with the local police as well, but just the way as a parent now and as a member of the community, children are being exposed to the smells and seeing drug dealing happening on the way to school at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. That's not okay to arrive to school almost smelling of cannabis as you walk down the street, and how that is occurring. That's secondary school Chesterton, that's the primary schools, Milton Road, St Luke's, all of the local schools. Children are walking through and smelling and seeing drug dealing in the morning and in the afternoon. Particular concerns now as we go into summer, walking across Jesus Green or near Jesus Green, 9 o'clock in the morning, 2:45 after school. Again, just constant exposure to drugs and that normalizing of it. Where does it lead to next would be my concern. I'd be interested to hear the data gathered from Gilbert Road, because obviously Gilbert Road leads on to Garden Walk and Stretton Avenue. Interested to hear the data in terms of the traffic, speeding, what was the outcome of it, and the other thing in terms of the play areas, so Alexandra Gardens near Carlisle Way, and the play area outside the back of Chesterton Community College on Bateson Road. Both sort of concerns about the activities that are going on there when children are not there playing, and drug dealing. I will make sure it's reported by the Garden Walk Association about sort of outside Michaelmas Place at the end of Garden Walk and around Bateson Play Park. I'll make sure that we are trying to report it as regularly as we are seeing it, and reporting that online, I think. And then the only other thing I was going to mention was the speeding on Victoria Road, and I know that that's an impact due to the Milton Road project, because more traffic is using the area. So yeah, those are my points, but thank you very much. And there's another member of Garden Walk Community Group on the call as well. So I'm just raising points for both myself and Alison on behalf of the association. So thank you very much for this evening.
Okay, thanks, Katie. I don't know if either Sergeant Jeffrey or Sarah Steggles would like to come back on any of those points, but I think the general message about reporting online, as has been mentioned, and through 101, about particular areas of activity to ensuring that police do get those incident numbers and raise the profile, and then hopefully they will give more consideration and attention to specific areas that are really problematic. The Bateson Road play area, as we know, has been raised as one particular area. But Sergeant Jeffrey or Sarah Steggles, would you like to come back on any of those points at all?
Yeah, Councillor, I can come back on some of those to start with, and then if Sarah wants to jump in, more than happy. So with regards to, I saw Councillor Shield, I'm just going to run through some, hopefully reply to some of yours to begin with. So how can we stop drug dealers from using parks? We do target parks, and that is very much information and intelligence led, so that we're targeting the right parks at the right time. Inevitably it will still go on, but definitely parks, as well as the green spaces on Bateson Road and Alexandra Gardens, Katie. These are areas that are known to our team, as well as the neighbourhood support team, which is the team that I mentioned that specifically target county lines. So we do know that it's ongoing, basically, and we do patrol them to try and target it. That the more information we can get to get the right times and areas, and descriptions are really useful to enhance our stop search powers as well. So the more times that people reporting, that's really useful. The second question, Councillor Shield, was around your 20 zones. We do conduct speed checks, but we are again targeting the areas we check. So the road safety analyst has highlighted key roads in the north where we have the higher proportion of killed or serious injury accidents. So therefore we do target those roads. And off the top of my head, I don't think Carlton Way or Perthway were ones that came out specifically in the latest report. So they are ones, so that is why those areas would not have been targeted. But we do target other areas. And in response, Katie, to you asking about, I've mentioned in my report about the Gilbert Road speed checks we did. We didn't report anyone for speeding, whether that's because we are high visibility, which is a requirement. We are there and people are braking potentially before, obviously, they're coming through our speed guns. I don't know, but yes, we didn't report anyone for speeding during our checks that we did, but at least it would have been a deterrent to ensure that people were driving at the right speed. And then Councillor Shield, you mentioned about the rat run around Garden Walk and enforcement. I'm going to be honest, I do not know about the restriction on the road for the resident access only, or how we would even go about thinking about enforcing that. But that is one for me to go away and research, because yes, I'm not aware about that. And I hope that has generally answered the majority of your questions and concerns.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate those answers. And just going back to the play parks and drugs question, I think in a way, I think probably what's going through a lot of people's minds, and maybe yours included, is that kind of crazy sense of, you know, that here, there are the toddlers on the swings, and right there are the lads smoking their spliffs. You know, surely those two things can. Surely we can separate one from the other. So, and I understand and accept that it's incredibly complex. The overall action to control drugs is incredibly complex and more than I could get my head round. And so I'm definitely not expecting a magic wand to be waved. But I'm just sort of thinking, surely there's a way with minimal disruption to anyone, that we can just, and also keep bearing in mind what Mrs. Neville-Jones has said about her experience of being a teacher and seeing the, you know, the youngsters, very young kids walking through clouds of dope smoke. Surely there's a way we can separate those two things out and get one away from the other, even if it was, and I think this is what's in my mind, even if it was, think of reminiscing about old style policing now, just a police walking up to those lads that are smoking that dope and saying, can you move, because these toddlers here, or these infants, are breathing in your dope smoke. How can that, I mean, surely that, I think that's really, everyone who walks past a park and sees that happening thinks that surely there's there must be some easy win that we're missing here to get one separate from the other. Yeah. You know, or even if it was just pointing out to the people who are doing the dope smoking, you know, look, is this really on? Do you think that's I mean, I understand we've got to be so careful about members of the public challenging each other on any issue, and the other day we were discussing a similar thing to do with another kind of antisocial behaviour, to do with dog fouling. You know, should residents be should actually be addressed and asked to do to show that they are going to clear up their dog mess, for example. And it is delicate, and there are all sorts of, you know, libertarian worries about kind of, you know, having those conversations. But I sort of think as if, and if you, Alice, could give us direction about what we can do, given that we don't have enough police for everywhere, but what we should do. I mean, should we go and have a meaningful and constructive conversation when we see it going on, and say, look, can you smoke that dope somewhere, or just don't have it right next to these kids? Is that, thank you, can there be guidance?
I think Sarah Steggles, I think, specifically want to come in, I think, on some of those points, because we are very much in partnership with the police, obviously. Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah, hello. I was just going to say, I think the difficulty is that we need people to be reporting it in order to then be able to sort of focus on a particular area. And I know where we've had issues in other areas and where we know that it's a bit of a hotspot, we can then do some joint work around that area. So it may be, for example, we need to encourage residents who live in that area to be reporting it. And we could be doing something simple like a letter drop, just making people aware of how to report their concerns if they're using the park. Might not get much back, but it's a step in trying to encourage people to actually know how to report those concerns in the right way. If that area then to us it looks like it's becoming a bit of a hotspot, there may be other things we can do in partnership with other agencies to look at what we can do in that park. And it may be simple things like, you know, that it needs a bit of a litter pick, it needs tidying, it needs shrubs cutting back to make it more inviting. So it may be other things that we need to be doing in partnership with agencies to make the area more welcoming to everybody. But at the same time, encouraging people to report their concerns when they're using the park, and not necessarily feeling they have to approach those individuals, but knowing how to report it in the right way.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you. Yeah,
That's really,
yeah.
really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember a while ago, I think in Aikman Street and Darwin Drive, where there's some fairly serious issues, not just antisocial behaviour, but quite serious criminal issues, that a letter drop really helped get that information about how to contact the council and the police in the right way, and about what sort of things should be reported. So I think that idea of a letter drop in some of these key areas would be really helpful. So thanks very much for that comment. I had a question from Councillor Wade.
Thank you. I think I've got my answer now. So thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. I think next it was Councillor Gorsott-Wood.
Right, can you hear me?
Yep, yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Well, this won't be any surprise, but what I'm going to say does reiterate what's already been raised. But I think, Sarah, that's really useful. I would encourage residents, rather than to just report it amongst themselves on social media groups, community groups, but to report it to the council, to the police, as appropriate. And I think a letter drop would be really helpful, because the things I'm coming up with are drug dealing, pulley, play area, Nuns Way wreck. Well, there's a very recent case of potential drug dealing and, in fact, even possible stalking that has come up in one road in King's Hedges. Alice, Councillor Gilderdale, will know about that one. And we are going to be walking down there with an officer, police officer, I think, in a couple of weeks. In terms of knife crime as well, I mean, that's been an issue in King's Hedges, and it's something that does frighten people, particularly when we had a stabbing, I think a very serious case in Nuns Way. So I would like to see, I'm very pleased to see that you are doing the work, again, you know, working with cohorts, trying to reduce use and carrying of knives. And I just encourage you to report back. I always want to sort of know the numbers. And I did wonder which of the schools that you were working with. This is on county lines. You mentioned 3 secondary schools in the north of the city. So I just wondered which they were, because I could only think of 2 at the moment, secondary schools. And then on speeding, noisy bikes and speeding. So these are a mixture of bikes, groups of youngsters on bikes, mopeds, electronically assisted pedal cycles. But I have been in the situation going along Arbury Road where I was faced with a group of 5 on the wrong side of the road doing wheelies. Fortunately, I had very good brakes and I wasn't doing more than 20. And they do the rounds all round King's Hedges, Arbury, and we are getting to the period where people will have their windows open. So I'm expecting to get lots of complaints about that. And on speeding, yeah, well, actually, it's the King's Hedges Road. This has probably been reduced by the work on Milton Road. But I know that Councillor Machini has applied for a traffic improvement order to monitor the speeding, and we have had some very serious accidents along there, going from east to west, sort of east to west. So yeah, I would just support anything that we can do to keep speeding down. Certainly on Arbury Road, King's Hedges Road. I shouldn't really say anything about Perthway, but there are areas where there is a lot of rat running in King's Hedges and Arbury, particularly Arbury, I think. So I think that covers it. I've said drug, yeah, potential drug dealing, and of course, a dropping of canisters and needles. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gorsop-Wood. In terms of some of your specific points, any comment back from Sergeant Jeffrey or Sarah Steggles at all? I know some of these issues have already been raised earlier in the discussion, but some of the specific points, perhaps. Any comments?
Just from myself, it's Alice. With regards to, I know historically when I came into the role that the issue around noisy exhausts is a particular one that some areas in the north have faced. So I do actually keep an eye out for scanning around this to try and see where it's going to pop up. And I know previously it has been on Arbury Road. At the minute, we are not seeing, when I last checked, we are not seeing any reports with regards to the noisy exhaust. So again, I encourage that level of reporting so that we can get an accurate picture of where the problems are. And just with regards to what you're talking about, like knife crime, the Op Guardian does focus a lot on preventative work and working with schools. So we have delivered knife crime presentation to the Olive. We're looking at a county lines presentation as well, because again, we want to prevent any young people from carrying knives and prevent any further knife crime.
Okay, thanks very much. The final question I've got at the moment is from Councillor Carling.
Hello again. Thank you. Yeah, but I guess before I just ask, just to kind of say thank you again for all the work that both teams are doing in the police and with the community safety team, because I'm always conscious that sort of you come to this committee and we blast you with loads of new issues and ongoing issues and problems that we all know of. But we are really grateful for you coming in for the work that's going on. In the community safety report, so this might be a question for Sarah, I noticed reference to getting new CCTV coverage, which I think is really positive. I was just wondering how long that footage, when those are installed, will generally be kept before it's deleted, because in the past I've had a few issues where residents approach me about things and we've gone to try and find the CCTV footage and find that it's expired and been deleted. So I'd just be interested to hear a bit about that. Other couple of issues I've got just for Sergeant Jeffreys is around Pointers Lodge on Chesterton Road. There's a bit of an issue with drug dealing there, because as you approach it, you turn right from Chesterton Road and you have to go through an archway and sort of like a back courtyard area where the front door is. And it's becoming quite a haunt for people taking drugs. And I know the directors of Pointers Lodge are getting really concerned about that. And I just wonder if there's any particular steps we can take to try and deal with that. And the other one I have is you mentioning about Alexandra Gardens and the drug dealing there before, which I'm grateful for. There's also Jubilee Gardens, which is kind of the new site that's been developed recently toward the river, where we've been installing some new benches and such like. And I think Councillor Wade and I have noticed some, and Councillor Swift as well, some significant evidence of drug dealing going on there as well. So I wondered if that's already on your radar.
Thanks, Councillor Carling. And Sarah, I think you asked specifically to respond on at least on the earlier points. Do you want to come
CCTV.
back?
Yeah, so CCTV footage. Now, I'm no expert on CCTV. I've got a figure in my head of 6 months, but I might be completely wrong on that. I don't know if Alice or Ed know how long the footage is retained for. They might have the correct answer, and I don't want to be giving you false information, but it's certainly something we can find out the answer to. The other issues you were talking about for the police, I just wanted to jump in on the Pointers Lodge issue, because we did have, we were getting reports of concerns there. We have a street support officer working within our team who was doing some visits to that area and engaging with sort of stakeholders there, and identified a number of individuals who we then linked in with various support agencies. So we were aware that stuff was going on there and advice has been given to Pointers Lodge. But if it's still continuing, it would be good to find out more. So I'd encourage them to contact us.
If I may come back on that very briefly, yeah, I'm acting on slightly old information from just before the election, so it may have been that that's slightly been resolved. I'll get back in touch with them and I'll drop you an email if there's still issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and there's a little bit of comment about from Inspector Ed McNeil, permanent cameras 28 days, temporary camera generally 21 days, a council CCTV camera statutory 30 calendar days. That's a bit of an update on CCTV. Were there any other points from the police regarding other questions from Councillor Carling? Councillor Carling?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say just anything about the Jubilee Gardens issue would be appreciated.
Okay, sorry, is there an answer to that?
Yeah, no, I'll come in there, Councillor, it's Alice. It's not an area that initially was on my radar, if that springs to mind, but I will definitely go away and have a look at it and see if we're getting the reports in and see what we can do.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Great, well, thanks everyone for your comments and questions. I just remind everyone that while the area committees are run virtually, we can't make decisions as such, but the police and I'm sure the Sarah Steggles team will also be more than willing to listen to the comments and questions that we've been raising in terms of recommendations or considerations that they're going to take forward. And in terms of the report, the ongoing current areas of concern that have been mentioned, they've all been touched on in this discussion. We've had specific sites and incidents in all parts of, I think, the North area relating to the 4 current areas of concern: street-based drug dealing, ASV and dangerous driving, cycle crime and youth and knife crime. And I would suggest, unless anyone wants to make a particular point to the contrary, that we recommend that, not that it's binding, but we suggest that those are the remaining areas of concern that we take forward. Councillor Gorsuch-Wood, sorry, did you want to make a point about this?
Well, it was just to alert you to a point that Ed McNeil has just raised. Oh yes, right. Update on Arby Town Park. Yes, that would be helpful. Thanks for pointing it out. Inspector McNeil, would you like to comment briefly on the situation at Arby Town Park?
Yeah, so we've currently got, I think it's 19 caravans and an unauthorised encampment on the park. Obviously, we've got the carnival that's due to occur on Saturday. Wendy Johnson from the City Council has made contact with me today and formally request the police consider our powers under the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act to move the group on. That was assessed by Superintendent Martin earlier today, who agreed that that would be necessary because of the potential significant impact on that event and therefore the community and the disruption that would occur as a result of the unauthorised encampment. It is unusual that the police would get involved in the encampment. It is, generally speaking, they are managed by the City Council, and only where a certain threshold is reached will the police become involved. I have attended the location today and I have formally given direction to leave the land. The next step is to see whether they comply with that direction, and if they don't, then we will be making an assessment around the number of resources that we need in order to attend that location and enforce that direction. That won't be taking place today. It is more likely that would be taking place tomorrow if we're in a position to muster the resources required.
By cameras, by monitoring equipment, and if so, might residents sometimes be able to make a case for a particular road to have that equipment installed on it? Otherwise, I can see, I've just been going around it in my mind, I can see a situation where roads where speeding could be quite bad would just never actually be able to get onto the radar because they're sort of doomed to invisibility, if you see what I mean. But maybe I'm not quite understanding how that chart is generated in the first place, and maybe if it is based on reporting, if it's already based on reports from residents, then I can see how, yeah, maybe you might say Carlton Way, Perthway, Roseford Road have had their chance, as it were, to be in that top 5 or what have you. Does that make sense? I hope so.
Yeah. Any response? Does that make sense?
Yes, Councillor Shill, it did make sense. So when we do Op Staple, we do target it. And when I was talking about the road safety analyst, but what they have done is identified where killed roads where you have resulted in an injury, which has resulted in someone sadly passing away, or there has been a serious injury, and it's to the highest risk category, which are pedal cycles, e-scooter riders and pedestrians. So where we target our work is predominantly based on the highest risk to the most vulnerable road users and the roads that are highlighted from that report. I hope that made sense.
Thank you so much. That's clear. Thank you ever so much.
Okay, thanks for that. So can I return to the kind of recommendations in terms of what we want to see coming out of this discussion in terms of the policing and council priorities? I suggested that the current areas of concern are all relevant, that we picked up specific incidents and areas in the North area where street-based drug dealing, ASB and dangerous driving, cycle crime and youth and rifle crime have all been referenced. But are we happy for those to be continuing recommendations in terms of policing and community safety work? I don't see any objections,
Yes.
so if that can be noted and taken forward, and thanks very much for the discussion. That was really interesting, and thanks indeed to Sergeant Jeffrey and Sarah Steggles for attending and taking all the questions and comments. Thanks very much. If we can move on to our final item tonight, and that's the last item, is Greater Cambridge Partnership, GCP, update on the Milton Road project. And thanks very much for bearing with us. It's been a little while. I'm sorry if you've been, or maybe you found it very interesting. But Thomas Porter from the GCP, if you'd like to introduce the item, that would be fantastic. Thomas, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was going to introduce myself, but I think you've just done it. So my name's Tom Porter, work for the Greater Cambridge Partnership, the project manager for the Milton Road scheme. I have prepared a few slides, only a few, so it won't take too long. And then any questions you have, I'll be happy to try and answer them. So let me try and just share this. Right, just let me know if that's coming through.
Yep, I can see it. Everything else okay?
Great. So what I thought I'd do, I thought I'd start with just a very short overview, because I'm aware there's some new members in the committee tonight, and I thought it might be useful just to give an overview for the scheme. So basically, the Milton Road project, the overall aims are to improve the active travel facilities along Milton Road, and we're also looking at the bus lanes and trying to improve the public transport and journey time reliability for the buses. With the scheme, there is segregated cycling pedestrian facilities, and we're doing at all of the side roads. There will be priority for pedestrians and cyclists, like the Copenhagen style crossings. As I mentioned, the optimized bus lanes, so the designers have looked at those to look at where it's best to have them inbound or best to have them outbound. Complete new landscaping strategy, new trees, new verges, all new landscaping, and new more efficient lighting that we're putting in, LED lighting. I've put just a small sort of visualization in the in the slide here, just to give you a rough idea of how it'll look in when everything's completed. So going on to sort of progress today, Milestone, our contractor, have been working completely on the eastern side up to this point. They're working in a number of locations along Milton Road. Main areas at the southern end by Mitcham's Corner. We've got another area between the roundabout and Union Lane or Arby Road, and going north of that as well. And then an area further north, sort of opposite Woodhead Drive, a section there. And they've done some work up at the King's Hedges Junction as well. So some good progress has been made down the eastern side. Also, I should mention at the roundabout as well, there's some progress good progress being made at the roundabout in each of the quadrants, and that's progressing well as well. Main sort of areas of works are around to get the trees installed. That's quite a tricky and complex task. In some areas at the southern end require what are called tree cells. Further up, some swales, and then we're doing new curbing, drainage, as I say, lighting, and then bus stop installation. So that's some of the key tasks that we've been doing up to this point. So I think, yeah, I've mentioned all of the rest of it. Up to this point, 26 trees installed. There should be some more going in imminently, just north of Union Lane on the eastern side. I think they're due for delivery hopefully tomorrow, and then or Monday, and then installation early next week. So what I've done on the next couple of slides, just to give some visualizations really, is some of the areas that we've made some progress in. So this is a complete section now, opposite Woodhead Drive. We've recently completed that with the top course of asphalt, and that's now enabled Milestone to move on to the next section. There's a few little bits and pieces just to make good in that area, but essentially it's complete. The southern end by Mitcham's Corner, we're very close as well to completing that. Bus stop's gone in fairly recently in the block paving around it. The main piece of work is the final course of asphalt at the bottom section, which is planned for next week, back end of next week. And that, again, will enable all of the orange barriers you can see in that picture to be removed, and it will open up that area, and it'd be another complete area. Showing a picture of the middle section. This shows sort of the segregation with the cycle path, footpath, and the area sort of next to the carriageway will be the swale, and in some of these swales there's trees which are being planted. So next slide. So the picture you can see on the left is at the roundabout. That's the northeast quadrant, which is pretty much finished apart from the top course of asphalt. So trees are planted, and you can see the grass seed is growing in that area quite nicely. The southeast quadrant is almost up to that point. Within the next few weeks, it will be at a similar point, and then Milestone will move on to the northwest quadrant, I believe, is their next quadrant they're moving to. And the last picture I got here is a just a picture of one of the bus stops we've installed by Mitcham's Corner. So what I've done, what I thought would be useful next is just to highlight a few key upcoming pieces of work that we'll be carrying out. I guess the biggest one is this Cadent diversion that we need to carry out. This diversion is just north of Arby Road. It runs from Arby Road. There's two parts to the diversion. The first part is around 200 meters long, and then there's a gap of around 100 meters, and then the second part is another roughly 150 meters. So it's a considerable piece of work that has to be done. The first part, the first 200 meters, we're looking to carry out over the summer holidays to try and minimize disruption, because as the diversion goes so close to Arby Road, it needs four-way traffic lights at the Arbury Road junction, which I imagine is going to be disruptive, because what happens with this diversion, Cadent require a certain amount of space for safety reasons to do the diversion, which means the road north of Arbury Road will be constrained to a single lane during the summer holiday period. Once we get through that initial period, it does become easy with the second diversion further north in along Milton Road, because we're that distance away from Arbury Road, so it means we don't need the four-way traffic lights at that point. Again, it will be constrained to single lane, and it's a similar time period to the summer holiday diversion, but it should be less disruptive because of because we're as I say, further away from Arbury Road. So that is the key sort of biggest item of work that I imagine is going to cause the most disruption, that I guess we're not really causing. Other key upcoming tasks, I guess more positive, is at Mitcham's Corner, as I mentioned, that will be completing up to Gilbert Road, and then we're going to move on to the next section and commence on the west. And then from Gilbert Road up to the roundabout, we will be continuing. We have done some work already up to, I think it's Herbert Street they've worked up to, but we'll continue up to the roundabout on the eastern side. And then the last key thing really is the Downlands Lane up to the King's Head junction on the west, which has, well, actually we're just north of Downlands Lane, but it has already commenced this week. We've been doing some trial holes, and today some vegetation clearance has been carried out for that area of works to commence. But we're still on track for overall completion next year. And then my last slide really is just to give you a feel for some of the main challenge that we're facing along Milton Road. And clearly we knew there was a lot of utilities, but it is extremely difficult to work around this many and to try and fit trees in around this many utilities. But yeah, we are progressing, pushing on and doing whatever we can to minimize disruption and to communicate to all of the local residents and traveling people through Milton Road and clearly my attendance at this meeting as well. So that was all in terms of presenting, but obviously happy with any questions I will try and answer.
Thanks very much, Tom. That's much appreciated. I've got a couple of councillors in the chat wishing to speak, but first of all, there's the public question from Katie Neville-Jones, which I think she still wants to ask. I think that right, Katie? It's kind of about mitigation measures in terms of diversion signs and ensuring that traffic that overspills as a result of the work isn't massively impacting on side streets and other related streets. But sorry, Katie, I'm probably taking the words out of your mouth.
Well, no, sorry, I put my glasses on, having got tired eyes with my contact lenses. It was just, yeah, the impact of the project on Victoria Road and the kind of damage to the existing roads because of the heavier traffic in other areas that's coming down Garden Walk and Stretton Avenue and on Victoria Road, and the impact that's had on the road surface in particular along that road. I didn't know what the steps were after you've tackled with the utilities that were going to be taken, if there was any budget or any money that was set aside for the sort of compensation of the surrounding areas. And I might be a bit late to the project to be raising that question, but thank you very much.
Shall I go ahead?
Yep.
Yeah. So basically the remit of Milton Road scheme covers Milton Road. So as part of our scheme, we are resurfacing the entire length of Milton Road from Mitcham's Corner right up to the pretty much up to the guided busway. It doesn't allow for the wider network. and repairs ongoing in the wider network. That would have to follow the process that it currently follows in terms of reporting to the county council, and then they would come out and carry out those required repairs. So we are doing the upgrading along Milton Road, and we are improving Milton Road itself, and that will prevent maintenance in the future for quite a period of time, I hope, along Milton Road. And you know, I suppose to go into detail, each of the side roads along Milton Road, we go in about 50 meters to tie into each of the side roads. So that's probably, to be honest, the extent of our works.
Okay, Tom, thanks. But presumably, certainly some of the major work that you mentioned in your presentation and the disruption that might happen, there must be some pretty close liaison with, say, county highways to ensure that alternative routes and diversion signs and such like are in place. And I know you can't force drivers to take the recommended diversion routes, but presumably that a lot of liaison has to happen to ensure that, as much as possible, mitigating the overspill of traffic can be done. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. So we have regular meetings with the street work team, and we have to have their agreement with the works that we're carrying out, and we have a permit just like anyone else would do for the works that we're carrying out along Milton Road. And for example, the Cadent diversion has been agreed alongside street works to be done in that period. So we weren't able to just go in and do stuff however we wanted. It's been agreed with Streetworks. On top of that, we do try our best to put as much comms out as possible. We did a big letter drop before we started for it was thousands of letters we put out in the local area to let people know of the work that we was carrying out. We have our website that people could go onto, and any important messages we need to get out, we will put on there. And we do a monthly newsletter. Anything of real importance, we'll also do either a specific letter drop or a specific press release or something along those lines. So we're doing quite a lot to mitigate, but clearly I do understand that during construction period it is disruptive. But the plea is that once we're complete, things should be really quite pleasant along Milton Road, and we'll be out of the way.
Okay, okay, thanks, Tom. I'm sure you're doing your best, and I'm sure County Highways will do their best. But I appreciate it's difficult for residents in and around the area. I've got Councillor Bird next to speak.
Thank you for your presentation, Thomas. Thomas, we have it's absolutely terrible here in East Chesterton. From Green End Road, from Nuffield Road, just to get onto Milton Road, it can take us between half an hour to 3/4 of an hour to get out of the village. We've asked for the timings to be changed slightly on the traffic lights. We were promised they were changed. It's made no difference whatsoever. We can get perhaps 3 cars out. The most is 4. And this is when people are trying to get to work and everything. Surely something could be done better so people can get out and get to work. That's my question.
Okay, got some specific things, Tom.
No, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, so I can come back. So the main bit at the lights, I think, Green End Lane. So the temporary traffic lights we've had to put in there. We've actually invested quite a lot of money to put a system in that's quite sophisticated. I know it's not ideal, but I guess what I'm sort of trying to say is it's much better than a normal temporary traffic light setup that would cause a a lot more disruption in the area. I guess another point I have to make is that we have to be particularly concerned about the A14 and not having traffic back up towards the A14 and onto the A14, because we'll be in a lot of difficulty if that does happen. In terms of the phasing of the lights, we did have the company who installed the lights out to have a look at it, and they have told us that they are optimized as best they can. It is on a specific system that is supposed to adapt itself and learn depending on the quantity of traffic that turns up to each of the arms at that junction. So it should be responsive, I guess, is the what I'm trying to say. All of which, I guess, doesn't help you in terms of traffic in that area, but I guess we are doing everything we can. Oh, and the other point I'd like to make is that there was particular problems before we had Union Lane reopened, and in fact Kendall Way, but more particularly Union Lane. Those are both open and will remain open now, so there's no plan to reclose them again. I can get the company to relook at the phasing of the lights. I'm just to warn you, I guess I'm afraid the answer may be similar to what they said last time, that they've looked at them and they've done all they can with the optimization of them. But I can ask them to do it again.
So how long will it be? Sorry, Chair. Just one last question. How long is this area going to be disruptive?
The junction up there. So we have faced some challenges. There's a lot of utilities and there's a lot of concrete above the utilities, which wasn't foreseen, the concrete in particular. So we've had to redesign some sections up there to try and accommodate that concrete. So they encase high voltage cables, which pose a safety risk to try and break the concrete out. So we're looking at early part of next year, to be honest with you, around sort of springtime, I would have thought, to be honest. So that's sort of where we're looking with that junction.
Okay, all right. Thanks very much.
Okay, Tom. Well, thanks for being very clear about it. Okay. Next, I've got Councillor Wade to speak.
Thanks for your presentation, Tom, and thank you for the time that you've taken to meet me with various residents' concerns. Because to give it some context, people that live on Milton Road, and I'm one of them, we've had diversions from the A14, we've had Histon Road, and now this is ongoing. So people's patience is running thin, and you've been great at trying to improve communication, particularly with the businesses, etc. So thank you for that. It's appreciated. My main concerns are communication liaison with schools, as you know, around getting the students to and from college safely, and thank you for the landscaping and the trees. But I've got a particular question around Highworth Avenue, and you're engaging with residents there next. I wonder, how is that engagement going to be dealt with? Are you going to be talking to them by email or letter drop? Because I've had a specific question from a resident about the ratio of pavement to cycle lane. I don't know if you can answer that at all, and how you'll be talking to the residents about what's going to affect them next. And also, the lights are great. They're obviously so great that people are now asking me about how they can be shielded from them because they're finding them quite dazzling. So I wonder if you could perhaps take that away and perhaps get me some information so I can help people there. But otherwise, it's just to emphasize, communication is the way to go, I think, with this area, because yeah, we know there's a long way to go. There's progress visible, and I'm all for the signage, as you know, so people can get in touch. So thank you.
Okay, so I've made a few notes on those points. So agree on communication. I think it is key for the area and all the people that live there. And I will never say that we've done everything that we can. So we're always trying to do more, always trying to improve, and always trying to do as much as we possibly can in terms of communication. Specifically regarding the schools, we have approached them, we have made contact. We are struggling. I think the school in particular that we spoke about is still on leave at the moment, so I think we're struggling particularly with that school to get in touch. But I know Milestone are going to actually go down there and try and speak to someone at the actual school. So that is in hand, and we're working towards setting something up, and we're also working towards some sort of pictorialized diagram of how the children can get onto or safely navigate Milton Road while we're in the construction phase. As it's evolving, sort of some areas becoming complete, it means those areas will be available to use, and then we'll be going into new areas. So then those areas will be changing in terms of how children should be using them. Highworth Avenue. So the actual plan at the moment for the planters to be removed and the access from Milton Road into Highworth Avenue to be closed is from the end of July. So it's 31st of July. From that point onwards is when we're planning to go in and take those planters out. So at the moment, we feel we're a little bit soon to set up, say, door knocking or something specific like that. But I think the plan is to start from the beginning of July, 1st of July, a number of avenues to talk to them. But I would expect a meeting partly from Milestone, but I'm also keen. I think there's some residents that have been dealing with the roundabout and the landscaping on the roundabout. I'm keen to meet them and talk about the plan and what we're going to do, and also the planters themselves. I think we can open that up and see if any of the residents want to input into what we put back there. I'm open to suggestions or their ideas on that one. And then the lights, yes, they are they are particularly good. So there's two things with the lights. At the moment, they're not dimmed, which they will be. So they've just been installed and they're running at 100%. There's a dimming ratio that is going to be applied, so that will help. But also there can be shields applied to them or fixed to them. We have ordered a few of them at the moment where we've had some complaints from residents, and we can order some more if people want them, and we can put some more shields on.
Great, that's really helpful, Tom. Thanks so much. I've got a question next from Councillor Smart.
Hello. Sorry, I was my camera was off earlier, Chair. So thanks for the presentation, Thomas. So I've got a small number of questions, Chair, if that's okay. Firstly, I've walked up and down Milton Road a fair bit recently, and very impressed with the way it looks. I love the way all the paving's been done so neatly and it's all lining up nicely. It's looking really impressive, so thanks very much for that. So questions, is it on time, on budget? And just questions about cycles, trees and roads. So on the cycleway, I noticed that people are already using the cycleway, the bit that's already been finished with red tarmac. So is that official, or should it be stopped? Is it safe for them to use it? On the trees, when we did all the consultation on that, we talked about having lots of different trees in case of any sort of infection or anything would kill them all off if it was just one sort. So is that the case? Are they sort of a variety of trees? I'm not quite sure, I'm not very good on trees. And finally, on the road, will the road be completely resurfaced, or will it have just the edges done like on Hills Road? That's what happened there, just sort of filled in the edges. And I missed that one little bit. You talked about segregation. Did you mean that some will be segregated or all? Because when we did the consultation bit, lots of residents argued for having some bits that were shared use. And so I just wanted to be clear whether there would be shared use as well. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, think I've got a note of each of them, but if I miss anything, just come back to me.
Yep.
So first one, on time, on budget. Pretty much yes. Timing slightly behind due to the utilities and getting utility companies in to do what they need to do when they need to do it. And it's been a bit difficult, I will admit. It's been a bit difficult to keep control of them. As you can imagine, utility companies are very difficult to do that. I believe we're through the worst of it. We've got some good working relationships built, and I think going forward it would be much smoother. Myself and Milestone, we're looking at the programme and seeing what opportunities there are at the moment to bring things forward a bit. And yeah, so there is some opportunities that we're looking at. So I think as we're moving forward, things will accelerate, and I'm hopeful that we will be on time, but we certainly won't be far off it. So that's that one. Yes, it's okay to use a new cycle path. That's not a problem. The only thing we need to consider, mainly us, a Milestone, is where the new cycle path meets the old at the end of a particular section where we haven't completed that section. We have to make sure the transition is safe and that kind of thing. And also for the section that we've currently finished, the piece you're talking about, if you're going northbound, at the moment you can't get to the co-op on that side of the road because we're doing the section from the top of that up to the co-op at King's Hedges Junction. So unfortunately, at the moment, pedestrians there's a crossing point they have to cross over, walk up on the western side and then cross back over. It is only for a period of time, a few months, until we complete that section. So there might be some, how to put it, temporary sort of management of pedestrians, but ultimately, yes, it's safe and okay for people to use that the new sections of cycle path and footpath. The trees, yes, they are a variety. They can be, if people would like to look at the variety. So on our website is the general arrangement for each of the drawings. And then there's a drawing which gives the list of trees and the variety of them. So that's that. But yes, the answer is yes. Will the Milton Road carriageway be resurfaced in its entirety? Yes, the wearing course will be resurfaced across the entire width, not just the edges. And obviously what goes with that is the new lining and all that kind of thing will also be done as well. And segregation, so it's not quite 100% segregated, but almost. The main areas which aren't are there's some crossings which become toucan crossings, so they are shared, and there's a particular area which we had to make a decision on from Highworth Avenue going southbound to the school on the western side, if that makes if that makes sense. There's an area of shared use there because there was concern that I think it's a primary school there, that young children on bikes or walking would have to cross the main road twice when they only want to walk, I don't know, a few hundred meters. So we made that shared use to be able to enable the kids to use a cycle going southbound in that particular location. I think that was all of them.
Thanks, Thomas. Yeah. Thanks, Chair.
Yep, you covered everything, Tom. Brilliant.
Good.
The final question I got is from Councillor Gorsuch-Wood.
Well, thank you very much for that, Tom. It's answered some of my questions as well. I mean, early on, we were getting a lot of complaints about near the entrance and exits and Woodhead Drive and round there, Downham Lane, and about the spoil heap. So it's really, when will the spoil heap go? cyclists and drivers complaining about the surfaces and asking for temporary surfaces put on. I've recently had one email actually asking about the segregation, but I think you've explained that why what it is and why. And then I think the other thing is I have realised that I haven't had much correspondence or notification or updates from yourself on the project. So could I just ask that you do keep ward councillors in the loop, even if you're working on a bit that's, say, to the south of where they are, so aren't King's Hedges?
Don't you have Facebook or Twitter? Oh.
Having lived through the pain of Histon Road, I actually do think it's produced, something much better than we had before. I do worry a bit about, and this is really dealing with the snag list when you are near to completion, and learning from Histon Road, because they did use it's the separation of the cycle path and the road and the fitting of those pavers, I'll call them. It wasn't done right. I assume you're learning from that. Also, some of the Copenhagen ramps on the side roads. I mean, one of them is falling apart actually on Roseford Road, so it's sort of ensuring that doesn't happen on Milton Road. And I take your point about it's very upsetting when you see utility companies coming along and digging up this wonderful new road and the surfacing isn't that great. So I hope the utility companies do everything they need to do before you do this before you lay the new road. Thanks.
Okay, I can come back on all of that, I think. So Woodhead Drive spoil heap. Unfortunately, the way the project is sequenced, it isn't sequenced that we do all the excavation in one go and then all of the curbing, etc. It's been done in sections, which means there will be spoil arisings going on throughout the project. As we go into each new section, there'll be excavation to be done until clearly we get to the last section. So that spoil heap will be there for, I would say, the best part of another year. We have been doing some work in terms of looking at dust suppression and dust mitigation in particular. So the spoil heap is now being covered. We're also Milestone have put together a sort of a dust management plan strategy, if you want to call it that, on how they're going to manage the dust in the compound area, especially now as we're going into the warmer weather and it's quite dry, etc. So that is in place. So that's that. The cyclists and the temporary surfacing. So this is a bit tricky because we're going to be resurfacing everything. It's not good to, I'd say, spend money if we're going to have to if we're redoing it anyway in the future. So there's a little bit of a strategy, and it isn't great at the moment because the road and the paths, etc., are not in good condition. But I think there's a feeling that we don't want to spend loads of money on them if we're going to redo it again anyway. So it's really, I think, a safety call, and work will be done where it's necessary. But we're not going to be doing sort of over and above too much because we're going through and we'll be doing everything brand new as we go through. I'll take your point on the updates. I will take that away and action them more frequently. That's a fair point. Snag list, yes. So really the way we work it is that defects or snags should be reported as they're found, when they're found, and they should be resolved in a timely fashion. So I would expect Milestone to be resolving snags, defects as they go through the project, so that there is a minimal amount to do at the end. There may well be some that need to be resolved if they're raised late on in the project, but they should, and I will be pushing them to be resolving all of their snags and defects as they're going through the project. We have, as part of the contract on Milestone, we have what's called a site supervisor who checks the quality of Milestone's work. He is on site every day, and that will also help to mitigate any snag defects, and the one you mentioned about the Copenhagen ramps. And I think the last thing you mentioned was about utility companies. So we have put in place what's called a Section 58, which prevents utility companies from doing planned utility works after we've finished the scheme for 2 years. It doesn't prevent emergency work. Clearly, if there's an emergency, they're going to have to repair it, but it prevents planned works. What that does mean is that we're having to work together at the moment with all of the utility companies for any of their planned works that they want to carry out. We're working with them now to let them in and get them to do it. And it's stuff that isn't necessarily part of the scheme, like they're putting in new water connections for some properties where they're like old pipes and old connections. And it means we're having to work together and accommodate them. But we feel it's better to do that now, rather than, as you say, digging up something that's brand newly finished and we have a scar through the lovely red asphalt, which no one wants as soon as we've finished. So that's that. I think, have I missed anything?
No, I think that's a lot from my notes anyway. But that's thanks very much again, Tom. I think you covered everything really well. Just a couple of thoughts. The Histon Road, of course, there was I think a double collapse. Cambridge Water Company had to come in. That was an emergency, so appreciate that does happen. You can't do much about that. And there have been one or two significant issues with the Copenhagen ramp sort of crossings, particularly the Roseford Road one that was mentioned. And obviously, once the scheme's handed over to effectively to County Highway, then they have to pick up the work on that. But you know, there's inevitably going to be a point when a project's handed over and someone else has to take on issues that do come up. So, but thanks very much. I know you've got lots of detail to come back on, and I'm sure you'll keep all the relevant ward councillors informed. But I really appreciate your time and your presentation and taking all the comments and questions. So I think that's it really. It was a good discussion. Thanks very much for everyone for attending and participating in North Area Committee tonight. The next North Area Committee is the 7th of September 2023. That's when it's scheduled anyway. So hopefully everyone's got that in their diary. And if I can ask the meeting producer to terminate the live stream link, then we can draw it to a close.